Yo, it's your boy Ryan, Northwest Sports Fanatics, back at you with a new video. Today is Saturday, September 6th, 2025, with your boy Ryan and the Northwest Sports Fanatics. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Smash that like button either now or on your way out. Donate to your boy if you can. Cash App $ ORIONNWSF or the YouTube Super Chat right here. We got the Oklahoma State Cowboys versus the number 6 Oregon Ducks. Kickoff is going to be here in roughly 5 minutes, and it's going to be a busy day today. After this Ducks game is over with no rest, we're going to jump right in to the Seattle Mariners versus the Atlanta Braves, game number 2 in the set. So it's going to be obviously a little bit of a long-winded day, but hopefully, with Victor Robles making his debut back with the team, we'll have a Seattle Mariner win late this evening, and obviously we want to see Dante Moore continue to do what he does on this high level on the Oregon Ducks in the Big Ten. And obviously at the end of this particular matchup, we're obviously going to be wanting to go 2-0 and dropping Oklahoma State to 1-1. Hope everyone is having a fantastic day. And again, not a lot of good, quality matchups per se. Obviously we got Michigan and Oklahoma later on, obviously this evening, and we know Iowa State getting close to being wrapped up as well. But definitely excited to be able to see what the Oregon Ducks can do here at home in Eugene. And hopefully we end up finishing strong, but also starting fast. And again, we got a lot of weapons with Moore and Whittington and Benson and many, many others. So I'm definitely excited to see where that goes. And I'm just going to get all of my screens set up and get ready. Thumb for the first stream, Oklahoma State, Oregon Ducks. And obviously there's not a whole lot of images just yet that are top tier for Dante Moore. So I'm kind of hoping as the season goes on, obviously the photographers will be busy. And then eventually I'll be using Dante Moore. I had one image that I was going to use, but it didn't really come out too clean. So I figured we would end up doing the promotional, obviously thumbnail that they ended up using with all their promo picks for the game this particular Saturday. And Flores versus Dante Moore. I am ready. So let me get settled in here. Let's go, baby. The chain is on. The gloves are on. We are ready to go. And obviously, a lot of the haters, were saying, you didn't really play anybody, last week. Again, Montana State is not going to be on the same level as Oklahoma State or a lot of the other, teams in the Big Ten. We get that. But again, this team feels like it's got a little bit different of a vibe. And we were very, very good with Dylan Gabriel last year. And if it wasn't for Chip Kelly and obviously that amazing Buckeye team ended up knocking us off, Oregon was going to have a pretty good chance to make a deep run. But sometimes that's what happens. You end up facing the, king of the castle. And if you look at what Ohio State has done last year going into this year, there is no doubt they are the cream of the crop. They are the best team in college football. And obviously to be the best, you have to beat the best. We weren't able to do that the second time around. We obviously beat them in the regular season in Eugene at Autzen, which was one of the most electric games in Oregon Duck history. But obviously it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And they got payback and got revenge when we went to the college football playoff. And again, we know that Ohio State is going to be great. We know Penn State is going to be great, but we do feel that Oregon can definitely hang with anybody. And again, we'll have to prove it this year. Ohio State not on the regular season schedule, but Penn State is, and we're going to have to go on the road. And that might end up being the one loss that we end up getting this year. There's 3 different scenarios. Worst case scenario, we go 10-2. Best case scenario, 12-0, and most realistic scenario, probably going 11-1 and dropping that game to Penn State on the road. But you never know. Anything can happen in college football. And again, we're definitely excited here in Oregon and in the Pacific Northwest to be able to see Dante Moore do what he does, and definitely ready for a good college football matchup. And again, as soon as this game is over with no rest, we're going to hop right into the Mariners and the Braves. And so I feel like this game will probably end around 4 to 4:05, and then the Mariners-Braves game is on at 4:15. So, I mean, normally when I end up doing a doubleheader, I like to have at least 30 minutes to an hour break, so that way I can, spend some time with my pup, eat lunch. But unfortunately, this is just the way the schedule is going. And this is kind of what happened last week as well. I wanted to do the Ducks versus Montana State and the Mariner game, but they were going to overlap. So I just decided to do the Mariner game on the stream and just watch the Ducks play with my pup, obviously in my own private time. And again, at this point, they're not going to really overlap. So, this is a time to be able to get this Duck stream in, and definitely excited to see what we can do here this Saturday afternoon. Bucks Rays Bolts in the building. What's good, baby? Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on the dono train. We'll be looking for 5 to 15 subs. Let's go, Ducks. I mean, we get Victor Robles back today, and obviously the emergence of Leo Rivas is exciting. So if Dan Wilson puts Leo Rivas at DH the rest of the year and no longer uses Mitch Garver at DH, and Victor Robles is also in the lineup with Rivas and Robles with everyone else that we have, I think that we can win today. It's going to be tough. Obviously, tomorrow Castillo is on the mound. I would assume that's going to be an L unless we score like 10 runs. But then we go back home to T-Mobile finally and start a series off with the Cardinals. And then that's where we're going to really have to, kick it into high gear. And I do think that we can still make it. But obviously the way that we played in the last, 20, 21, 22 games, not good. When you only win 3 or 4 games out of 20, and again, you're not good on the road, it gets a little depressing. I won't lie. But I do think that the team is talented enough. If we can make the adjustments. Pitching has not been good. Obviously starting pitching, lately has gotten better. Logan Gilbert did great, but obviously Gabe Spire blew it in the pen, and that's kind of been the issue. It's either been a starting pitcher that has blown it, the bullpen that's blown it, or both. Really, the hitting has been there more times than not. Sometimes, it's 1 to 3 runs and we lose. But, if we get to 5 runs, 7 to 10 hits, usually that's the sweet spot in the magic number. So I'm really hoping for a Duck win as well as a Mariner win today. We've lost so many games lately. And again, it sucks when you end up having, players that play so well. And then for someone on the back end of the game like Spire to blow it, not ideal. But again, we will be doing the Duck game here. I will be doing the Mariners and the Braves as soon as this game is over. And then tomorrow I'll be watching the Mariners on my own free time. It's on at 9 a.m. on Roku. And then I'll be watching the Bucks and the Falcons go at it at 10 a.m. as well as a lot of the other games. And then tomorrow's stream, so I can rest my voice doing 2 today, will be the Bills and the Ravens for Sunday Night Football. And I'm definitely looking forward to that. As we saw the Chiefs drop a game, to the Chargers. Obviously, Herbert and that team looks a little bit better than expected. Chiefs maybe a little bit worse. They got the Eagles week 2, so they could go 0-2 to start off the season. Not really ideal for Chiefs fans, but for AFC fans, obviously for the Ravens and the Bills, they're salivating because they're thinking maybe this is the first time in a while where they can actually win the AFC over the Chiefs. And, based on what we saw yesterday, and we'll see how the season progresses, that could be the truth. And obviously with the NFC, you got the Eagles, the Commanders, right? You got the Packers, you got the Lions, you got the Bucks, you got the Falcons, you got the Rams. So there'll be a few teams, obviously, in the NFC battling it out. And we could end up having 2 teams that haven't been to a Super Bowl in a minute in the Super Bowl, obviously, at the end of this year. Cody in the building. What's good, brother? Let's go. Game is on CBS Sports, which is a little unusual. We typically don't have a lot of Big Ten games, through CBS, but we'll take it. Let's go. Had this really dope beanie that I got. It's a player-issued beanie that they wear on field, but unfortunately the beanie is black and green, and it has a little, tag with the yellow on it as well. And unfortunately, with the Ducks, their main colors are green and yellow, but when you use a green screen, I can't use that gear. So I got, Herbert jerseys, Bo Nix jerseys, a lot of green apple stuff, a lot of yellow as well that I can't wear on stream. Otherwise, I'd be like a floating head. So unfortunate that I can't rep that gear, during the stream. But obviously in my free time, I can rock it. Obviously after hopefully this Duck win here on week number 2. Number 6, Oregon Ducks versus the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Kickoff is going to be here in just a minute or two. Also, get your ticket for Powerball, $1.8 billion. And again, even if you only spend $2, again, in Oregon alone, when it was the first drawing at like 1.3, 1.4 million, I feel like on Monday or Tuesday, we had three $50,000 winners in Oregon. And then close to where I live in the same city, we had a $2 million winner, here. So again, even though it may not be the big jackpot, you can still end up winning, 50,000, 100,000, a million, 2 million off a 1.8 billion jackpot. So me and my best friend ended up getting 5 tickets. So, we're praying that, even if it's not the major jackpot, I mean, hell, even winning 50 grand, could definitely change your life for the better. So get your tickets if you haven't got one just yet. Going to be an explosive drawing. And if there's no winner, obviously tonight, then it's going to be the next drawing, obviously on like Monday, Tuesday, will be over 2 billion. And so we're getting into kind of uncharted territory there. Hybrid in the building. What's good? Yeah, but again, I mean, when you're playing shitty competition, obviously Arch can look like a superstar, but based on what we saw against Ohio State, footwork wasn't very good. Throwing motion, not very good. We know Arch obviously will put up some pretty good stats throughout the year against competition that's mid or bad, but we want to be able to see how he does against great competition, and we kind of got a glimpse of that in week 1. I don't think he's going to win the Heisman. I don't think he's going to be the first pick in the draft. Obviously, he doesn't look or feel like Peyton or Eli, but I hope for the best, for Arch and that fan base. The defense is great, for Texas, but again, anybody can beat up on a team that, that is, lower tier, but how are you going to play against, top 25 competition? And I think that's what a lot of college football fans want to see. It doesn't have to be 1 versus 3, or 3 versus 10. You can still get good quality matchups in the top 25. And there's still going to be some good teams that aren't ranked that will put up a fight. Like with this Oklahoma State game, I imagine they're going to put up a little bit of a fight early, but we should be able to pull away eventually at the very latest in the second half. So let's go. The Ducks take the field. And as long as we have Dan Lanning, we should have a very good chance, to be a top 5 team all year, as well as every single year moving forward. And it just kind of feels, based off recruiting and the progression that Oregon is going, at some point, within the next 10 years, if Lanning stays, we should be able to make a natty or 2. We may not win, the first time that we go, but it kind of feels like we're getting closer and closer. And we understand the Buckeyes are amazing. We understand Penn State Nittany Lions are amazing. We understand that, Georgia and LSU and a few of these other teams in the SEC, even though they may not be the powerhouse conference anymore compared to the Big Ten, we get it. But we like our chances, against any, top tier opponent. And hopefully, for a lot of us fans that have been fans for 20, 30, 40 years or longer, we're definitely thirsty. We got a glimpse of what it would be like, with the Chip Kelly era, obviously going to a Rose Bowl, a Natty, a Rose Bowl, and a Fiesta Bowl. But again, with this Dan Lanning era, it feels like we could even go above and beyond what Chip built. And that's pretty exciting. Hybrid, agreed. We'll see what they do against Florida next week. Agreed. Let's go, baby. But I like Dante Moore a little bit more than Dylan Gabriel last year. I was kind of enamored and in love with Michael Penix Jr. on the Huskies as a lefty. But Dylan Gabriel kind of played more like a Tim Tebow type, except minus the running. His throwing motion, wasn't as smooth as Michael Penix Jr., as a lefty. And now as we go back to a righty quarterback, I think it suits the offense a little bit better because you got to flip up your play calling when you go with a lefty, when you're running bootleg and when you're running play action compared to running with a righty. So I really like what I see out of Dante Moore. And, there's a chance that he could even be better than Dylan Gabriel. And honestly, I think Dante Moore will be a top 5 Heisman finalist. And, it could be as high as top 3 when it's all said and done. And definitely excited to see what he can do today. Gundy and Lanning going back and forth. And obviously Oklahoma State kind of, moaning and complaining that, that their school doesn't, invest enough. But again, you have to have the right money. You have to have the right boosters. Uncle Phil in the back pocket helps. But again, you have to invest. And again, the way that the NIL is active now, there's no loyalty really with the coaches and the players anymore. At any given moment, your favorite coach or favorite player could dip. And again, we do have some loyalty. And Dan, obviously, we know, was the defensive coordinator for Georgia. So at any moment, if Georgia fires Kirby Smart, who do you think they're going to call? They're going to call Dan Lanning. And I'm hoping before Dan ends up going back to Georgia, if he does, we end up getting a natty under our belt before that move comes. But we know Kirby is, very solid. And hopefully Dan will stay loyal, because you always hear college football coaches saying, oh, I'm going to be here for a long period of time. And then 6 months later, they're gone. But with Lanning, it definitely feels different. And it's the best coach we've had since Chip Kelly. And I think, when it's all said and done, Dan Lanning will be the best coach Oregon has ever had, because I do believe he will lead us to a natty or two appearance and at least one victory. So, and Cody, I will be doing the Braves and the Mariners just as soon as this game is over. They might overlap, but if the game is a blowout with like a few minutes to go, I'll end this Duck stream a little early so that way I can prep for the Mariner stream. So, all right, Oregon won the toss, baby. Let's go. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train, and 5 to 15 new subs. Let's go, baby. And here we go. Flag down already. Kick out of bounds.
So good field position right off the bat for the Ducks. As we bring out Dante Moore.
All right, Dante Moore coming out.
Gary said one of the number one guys in the country, transferred to Oregon.
And just waiting for ESPN and everything else to get situated with the scoreboard. They're slacking.
Long-term kind of personality, looking to get better, understands it's a process, isn't trying to be a superstar in the press. He wants to be a great player on the field. Will Stein, the offensive coordinator, said.
All right, Will Stein, offensive coordinator. He's going to be cooking today.
He goes. First down from the 35.
First down from the 35. Moore under center. Man in motion, little bootleg to the left. Check down. Johnson with the short carry.
Up front, their offensive line. Isaiah World, who came over in the portal from Nevada, considered maybe the best offensive line portal guy there was out there. Kenyon City, we saw be a star. A couple of touchdowns in the Big Ten championship last year, and you just getting started on being one of the great tight ends of the country.
Little read motion right up the middle. Go, baby, go, go, go. He might go all the way. Touchdown, Oregon. And just like that, that's what we do. We strike quick. And Noah Whittington, oh my goodness. Let's get it, baby. Great start. Now if we could just get ESPN to get all their shit working here for the scoreboard, that would be great. They are slacking. Come on, ESPN. Game has already started, and they don't even got the scoreboard up. Nice job by Noah Whittington there, right out of the gates.
Receivers to the right, the safeties were looking at each other, trying to figure out where to go, and that's the formation that got them.
Extra point is up and good. And I'm a little confused here why ESPN doesn't have their stuff together. The game has already started. Scoreboard hasn't been reflected, but hopefully at some point the employees will wake up after taking a bathroom break or a snack break, because they need to update it. Oregon 7, Oklahoma State 0. Reflecting the building. What's good? Yeah, great start right out of the gates. And again, ESPN, I don't know if it's because of the merger with NFL Network or with WWE, but, they need to be able to wake up. I'm still refreshing everything, and things still have not been updated. I mean, again, normally, if it takes a little bit of time, to get things situated, but I've never seen it where the game has already started and they don't have it up and going. But we would assume at some point when people wake up, they'll be able to update it for us here.
Fortunately, I didn't check to see if anyone was watching before I stole cotton candy from a child. Checking off state first was
Gibson in the building. What's good?
checking the Jumbotron.
Yeah, I'm a Duck fan, but I mean, I like, watching the Huskies. Honestly, I keep very close tabs, with the Huskies and the Cougs and the Beavers. And, anyone that lives in Oregon and Washington typically does, going from the Pac-8, the Pac-10, the Pac-12. And now, obviously some of us are in the Big Ten. Some are still left in the Pac-12. But I think the Huskies, to me, are the sleeper team in college football this year. I don't think people really understand how good, Jonah Coleman really is. Unless they ended up watching, the games that they played last year. Damon Williams is like a Kyler Murray, got that great speed, great arm. And then you got David Boston's son there, So, I mean, there's some really good weapons on offense and defense. As finally the scoreboard gets updated. Nice to be able to see ESPN employees finally woke up, and for them to be able to finally update it with 14:20 left, everyone that's doing the scoreboard should be fired. Come on, my guys. The game has already started, but at least they got it going now. So, all right, I think I'm going to adjust it here slightly as well.
CBS tomorrow. Lady Gaga brings the mayhem to the stage. Don't miss her perform at the TV event of the year. CBS presents the MTV Video Music Awards tomorrow at 8, live on CBS and Paramount Plus for the premiere plan.
7-0 Oregon in the opening 40 seconds. We'll take you back to the touchdown.
Finally, they got it updated.
A lot of good things that happened, but this is an
Yeah, and I think the game of the year that's nobody's talking about, really just yet. I do think it's going to be Oregon and Washington, last game of the year in Seattle. There might be a lot on the line in that particular game. And I'm really hoping that the Huskies at some point end up being the fourth, team right next to Oregon. Like if it's going to be, Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, Washington, I don't think anything would make me happier. I mean, I know that Oregon fans are supposed to hate Washington fans and Washington fans are supposed to hate Oregon. And, there is blood there, right? Just like when you have the rivalry for the Apple Cup with the Cougs and we have the rivalry with the Civil War that we don't say anymore against the Beavers. But, Oregon and Washington do have a lot of similarities. And obviously they made that natty appearance against Michigan with, Michael Penix Jr. Loved a lot of those players on the team. And, I definitely follow that roster very, very closely. All right, 7-0 Oregon. Noah Whittington right up the middle. 59-yard touchdown. Sappington extra kick is good. And now we'll see what Oklahoma State can do here on their end against the Ducks. Handoff up the middle. Good defense there by Oregon. Short gain.
offensively for Oklahoma State. They realize that Markel Samuel, the starting left tackle,
And it's kind of unusual since it's on CBS. A lot of people are watching it through the CBS Sports Network and whatnot. I was trying to decide if I wanted to watch it through my phone, if it would be faster than watching it through the TV or, through the app and whatnot. But little screen pass, no, slant, and incomplete. Good defense there by Oregon.
it's a big change for this Oklahoma State offense.
Yeah, and again, Dylan Gabriel was great, and Tez Johnson and a lot of the players. But I know it's kind of crazy because as good as we were feeling like we had a good chance, to make a deep run and get to the Natty. Who knows if we would have won, if we would have made it? There's a chance that anything could have happened. But Chip Kelly was there. Ohio State is on a generational run since last year, and again, you have to beat the best to be the best. But I do think Oregon will be a top 5 team all year, and definitely excited to see what they can do. Great defense up front, pass incomplete, and the Oregon Duck defense stepping up. And at least we don't have to worry about Chip Kelly anymore because that was one of the single reasons that we lost. And he's now on the Raiders helping Pete Carroll out. But again, Ohio State had to revamp their new O coordinator and new D coordinator. D coordinator that they had last year went to Penn State, the rival, and they haven't really skipped a beat by bringing Vrabel in. So again, it's not going to be easy beating the Buckeyes or the Nittany Lions this year, but I'm really hoping that the Ducks and the Huskies can really prove that, hey, the Ducks are obviously a little bit higher for, a given reason, with the talent and the roster that we have. But sooner than later, the Huskies are going to be in the top 25, and hopefully they can climb, and get as close to Oregon as possible. Hopefully it can end up being a top 15 team sooner than later, and I'm definitely rooting for them. And I know that's not something that you typically hear from a normal, Duck fan. But again, I'm not really a normal Duck fan. I mean, I've been a fan for, 35, 40 years, but I like to be able to see success, through the Cougs and the Beavs and the Huskies, just not when they're playing us. And I think the same thing goes for, some Husky fans as well. Some of them are going to wish that Oregon loses every game, and that's rightfully so. But there's going to be some Husky fans that want to be able to see Oregon do well, just to represent, for the Pacific Northwest, for the Oregon and Washington kind of bond that we have, for our team. So far, so good. 7-0 Oregon. And it's going to be a long day after this stream is over. I was going to do Montana State, Oregon last week. I typically, only miss a game if I go to Eugene and I'm there, or if it's going to overlap, with the Mariners. And unfortunately, the Mariner game and the Duck game last week was going to overlap. So it wouldn't have really made sense for me to do Oregon for like 3 quarters and then end the stream. So I figured I would just watch it with my pup, which I did. They got the dub, and then obviously did the Mariners stream today. This game should end right around the beginning of the Mariners stream. So depending on the score, I might end it slightly early, and that way that, with a couple minutes to go in the fourth, and that way I can prep for the Mariners and the Braves, which starts at 4:15. So it's going to be about 7-8 hours in the chair straight. So it's going to be a grind, but hopefully we can get a Duck win here first. And then Victor Robles obviously makes his debut with the Mariners. Hopefully we get a dub today. And hopefully I see Leo Rivas at DH for the rest of the year. If that ends up happening, the Mariners will be able to turn it around. They have Luis Castillo on the bump tomorrow at 9 a.m. on Roku. So unless the Mariners scored like 10 runs, that's an automatic L. So this is a must-win game to prevent the sweep. We already lost yesterday after Logan Gilbert pitched a gem against Chris Sale. But what happened, Gabe Spire blew it in the pen. And again, we really want Victor Robles and Leo Rivas to be playing every day. And, I'm not necessarily saying Rivas needs to play for J.P. Crawford, but Rivas at DH would make sense over Garver the rest of the year, unless Dan Wilson is completely oblivious. So, Sean in the building, what's good? Let's go, baby. But I've been a fan of pretty much all of my teams, for about 40 years. I started watching sports and wrestling with my dad around 3-4 years old. So the last team that I claimed as my own team would probably end up being, the Bucks in 95 when I was 13, and obviously the Kraken a few years ago. So. And Dante Moore, pass complete to DeCorian Moore, who is like a LaMichael James, DeAnthony Thomas type of player. Touchdown, Oregon. And we knew that this was going to happen quite a bit. We haven't had a player like LaMichael James or DeAnthony Thomas besides this guy right here, DeCorian Moore. And this guy can do anything and everything LaMichael and DeAnthony can do. And look at him go. Blockers downfield. And don't be surprised if DeCorian Moore starts getting some Heisman talk at some point with Dante Moore. Dante to Dante. And it's magnificent, man. And that was a big problem with Oregon last year. We didn't have that Jeremiah Smith type of player that the Buckeyes had. We didn't have that Ryan Williams that Bama had. So now we finally have a 5-star recruit that's like DeAnthony Thomas. And again, a guy that can line up in running back. He can line up at wide receiver. You can end up running screen passes, reverses, bubble screens, and pretty much you can have him run a stop and go, a post, any single route. There's not a corner in the nation that can really keep up with DeCorian Moore on the regular as they go for the 2, and it is stopped. Good defense there by the Cowboys, but hell, we'll take a 13-0 start any day of the week. And we saw Dak, do the blocking last week and pancake, that defender into the turf. And, he gets excited, to be able to make big plays, even if it's him not catching and running in for the touchdown. But if you're talking about hands, you're talking about speed, you're talking about vision, football IQ, route running, this is the best player that Oregon has had on offense as a wide receiver since DeAnthony Thomas. And we know I got the Dat jersey on right now. Again, D'Anthony was special. LaMichael was special. We haven't had electric players like that at running back and wide receiver in a minute. And again, it feels really good to be able to have that explosive player show what he can do. And that won't be the last time that you end up seeing a 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90-yard touchdown from Dak to Dak. Nice job by Dante Moore to DeCorian Moore. Awesome. And again, we were kind of hoping for that to happen last week, but again, Montana State, you're going through the playbook. Will Stein tried to simplify the playbook, made it too complicated for Dylan Gabriel last year. And if you guys remember, when they started playing kind of the weaker opponents at the beginning of the year, and when we played Wisconsin, it kind of felt like we were going to lose, a few of those games early in the year because Stein was overcomplicating the play calling. And we know Dylan Gabriel and the team, with Tez Johnson and everyone else, they're incredibly intelligent. But, again, do you need to really have like 100 plays memorized at the beginning, or you could simplify it and have it maybe be 20 and then, just run your plays. And so far, the simplicity of the play calling is in Oregon's advantage this year. Handoff. Good defense there by the Ducks. Let's go, baby. 13-0 already out of the gates. Noah Whittington, stud. DeCorian Moore, stud. And again, when they talk about guys that are five-star athletes, we've had guys that were rumored, that were going to be here, but we haven't had that DeAnthony Thomas, LaMichael James type of talent since them, really. We've had great quarterbacks with Herbert and Bo Nix, and you've seen, Marcus Mariota. So we've had some pretty solid quarterbacks, which is great. But anyone knows, you got to have a good O-line. You got to have a good defense. You have to have good play calling. But you really need some superstars at running back and wide receiver. And we've had some pretty good names, Bucky Irving and a few others over the years at running back. But as far as a wide receiver, DeCorian Moore, haven't had a guy like that since DeAnthony. And hey, the Black Mamba is smiling at home watching this game. You best believe. Shotgun set, handoff, and nice hit. So I'm going to take a quick peek. I'm watching it on the TV through the CBS Sports app, but I'm wondering if I watch it on my phone, it will be slightly faster. Let me see if I can go that route. But again, that's what I'm watching it on, and that's how it's coming in for me. So obviously, if you watch it on a streaming app, it'll even be more behind. But again, sometimes, depending on where you live, some things are going to be, slightly slower, than others. But I guess that's what we're going to get. So. Not everyone has the luxury of sitting in front of cable TV and watching it on that particular feed. And depending on the feeds, I have cable obviously in the living room, but I don't have it in here. But I have access to the email that links up my cable to anything that I watch, Fox Sports app, CBS Sports app, and everything else, ESPN. But, again, sometimes you're going to have a little bit of a delay, compared to others across the nation. And, there's nothing I can do, based on that. I can only call it based on what I have, through the Xfinity account. So as we have an injury there, 4th down and 9 on the Oklahoma State 25, and punt to Oregon now on the Oregon 27. Oklahoma State are already out. Oscar Hammond's out. Another tight end in this game. Can't afford to lose a second tight end.
Westfall into punt, and Gary Bryant waits on the other end for Oregon.
I mean, I can end up calling the game based on what I see through ESPN, but then I'm not going to really be able to enjoy the game footage itself, so I can call the game based on what comes up through ESPN, but, even ESPN didn't get their scoreboard up until after the Ducks scored. So, sometimes even with ESPN, they're not as reliable, but, normally once they're in gear, that's going to be as closest to live TV, but we'll see where it goes. I'm going to see if I can get that faster, possibly through it, just watching it on my phone and going that route instead of having it going through my TV. I mean, I'm doing it through CBS, through my Xfinity account. But, again, what can you do? Sometimes it ends up coming through and I got it on the phone now. So I'm going to see now with the phone if it makes any difference. Because obviously, I noticed through Root Sports when I do Mariner streams, Root Sports on my phone works much better than Root Sports on, rootsports.com, on the computer. The computer feed doesn't work. There's all kinds of issues there. But when you watch it through the phone, it ends up being, pretty good. So maybe going this route will work a little bit better. So let me see if I can make a difference there with this. One sec. Because obviously I want to be as live as possible with everything. All right, so now I'm going to see if going through the cell phone directly will be any faster or not. It may or may not be, but I did notice it's better, through Root Sports, through the phone there. So we'll see how it goes. And I don't really, for me, it doesn't matter how big of a screen it is. I can follow the game, doesn't matter, as long as I can have the game on, I'll be good to go. So yeah, I already knew that, but yeah. But again, depending on what you're watching it on, if you're watching it through a streaming link or, really, even when you're watching it on cable, in one state compared to another, sometimes it's going to be a little bit faster for others. So, but it looks like it might be slightly better here, but we'll find out. But it may end up being just like 10 seconds behind no matter what. First down and 10. Hand off. Whittington up the middle again. Scrambling and gambling. There we go. First down, Oregon. And based on what I can see on the ESPN website, it looks like it's maybe like a play behind. But, I mean, what can you do? Let's go, baby. 13-0 Ducks. Shotgun set. Man in motion. Whittington again off the counter. Another first down. First down, Oregon. Move the chains. Nice 11-yard gain from Noah Whittington. And again, we've been able to get a plethora of receivers and running backs that have been pretty good. Obviously we know how good Bucky Irving is. And, we've seen, Tez, make a little bit of a mark already early with the Bucks. But again, Dante Moore to Decory Moore, big advantage, compared to a lot of the other quarterback wide receiver combos. Moore, check down. And down the sideline, nice gain there. All right, Lamar, I see you. Nice job by Jaden there with that reception, but a flag on the play, and probably that's a hold. You would assume that's coming back. Yeah, I'll be watching the Huskies later tonight, so holding. All right, first down and 15 on the Oregon 45. Let's go, baby. Yeah, I mean, again, we felt that we were good enough to go to a natty and win it last year, but we ran into a buzzsaw, with Chip Kelly and Ryan Day and the Buckeyes, and they were on a generational run. And it shows you if you go undefeated in college football, you don't get catered to. It's worse if you end up being undefeated because then you have a month off. And then teams that have a loss or two continuously play every week. And that's what the Buckeyes did. And they were able to take advantage of that and go all the way. And they look very, very good this year as well. Little screen game there. Second down and 13. Shotgun set for Moore. Floater towards the sideline, incomplete. Benson, the intended receiver. Third down and 6 on the Oklahoma State 46. And again, this one could be over by halftime. Oregon is very, very good. We got a lot of depth. There are some, areas, with the team where we're in a youth movement. But again, as long as those, guys that are young, they end up producing, it won't matter. But again, it's nice to have the depth and have a little bit of a youth movement with some OGs that have been there for a few years as well. Shotgun set. Moore. Crossing route. Go, go, go. And nice tackle there. Pass complete to Justice Lowe. 4th down and 4 on the Oklahoma State 44. And looks like timeout is called, Oregon. Trying to decide what we're going to do on 4th and 4. And again, we don't need to, play bully ball or to be too cocky, and whatnot. I mean, if I'm Oregon here, even if I know that I can get the first down, you might as well just punt. Sometimes it's good to play smart football, and again, I get it. You want to be able to put your foot on the pedal, and you want to, take no prisoners and whatnot. But for whatever reason, if you don't get it or you have a turnover and then all of a sudden it ends up being 13-3, 13-6, 13-7, when it could have ended up being just, you punt, you play good defense, you play the field position game, you end up forcing the punt, and then you end up naturally scoring and going up, 16-0 or 20-0. So we'll see where it goes. All right, I'm going to go and I'm going to put it on the TV so that way at least I can watch it on a bigger screen here, since it seems like it's, going to be around that same, spot anyways. Slightly behind, even though I have it linked through my Xfinity account, it still looks like it might be slightly, 5 seconds, 10 seconds behind, maybe from an actual cable box, for whatever reason. But, again, Root Sports app usually is on point, but Root Sports on the computer for Mariners, not so much. But I'll see how this works out, and hopefully there's no issues. Otherwise, I'll flip it back. Yeah, and coaching continuity is very important, as you know. Again, we have a top 3, coach in college football. We know Ryan Day is great, Kirby Smart is great, and there's a few others. But, I don't think anyone can say that Dan isn't a top 3 guy right now. Throw to the sideline, incomplete. And that was a terrible play call. We called a timeout for that. Come on, Dan. Especially where the football is at, the Oklahoma State 44. That definitely felt like a Chip Kelly type of call. And there's no reason for us to do that. And it's one thing that we're playing Oklahoma State, but imagine if we ran that play and you're playing like Washington at the end of the year. Like, you cannot do that. You have to play smart football. And again, I know that, you're going to take chances. I know you're going to go for 2. I know sometimes you're going to go for it on 4th down instead of kicking the field goal. And I think every college football fan gets frustrated, with that, when the points are there, like when we lost twice to Washington in the Michael Penix Jr. era. If we just would have kicked the field goals when the opportunity was there, maybe we win one of those games or maybe both. But again, Dan Lanning's, greed, to be able to kind of step on the throat and, put your foot on the pedal. And, it doesn't always work out. They always think it's going to work out. And it's good to have a positive attitude thinking that, yeah, good things are going to happen. But you also have to be realistic and you have to respect the other team. At some point or another, you got to take what the defense gives you, especially when more than likely you're going to win the game anyways. Why give the other team a chance to gain momentum? And then all of a sudden, they score a touchdown. Dante Moore throws a pick 6. And then all of a sudden the score is tied when we could have been up 20-0. So, I'll definitely be monitoring, kind of the risk reward, play calling that we usually do on 4th down and 3rd down. And again, it doesn't really make me too happy. And I know a lot of Duck fans and, fans in college football understand what we're talking about. But kind of a missed opportunity there. I would have rather just punted the football and played the field position game. But I guess when you're number 6 in the nation and you're one of the best teams in college football and you're playing an unranked Oklahoma State, even though they're 1-0, I guess, they just, are going to do whatever they want to do at that moment. So Storm Bum in the building. What's good? All right, I'm going to move my other setup here for a second. And I've been trying to get some good Dante Moore. It's either going to be Dante Moore or a Decorian Moore, on the thumbs, but again, they haven't really had too many good options for me for images yet. So I'm hoping as the games continue on, more photographers will take good photos, and then eventually I'll be able to use, Dante Moore or Dak, obviously, for the main thumb. But I had to go with, what they were going to be wearing today. Ohio State routing Grambling State. And that's kind of the problem also with college football with over 100 Division I teams. There's a lot of top 25 matchups. Obviously, we got Oklahoma and Michigan later today, but, it's like you only really you had Iowa State this morning with Gus and Joel, which is always great on Fox at 9 a.m. But usually you're only going to get a couple good college football matchups a weekend, compared to the NFL where it's like many matchups are great. But, at some point we're going to get a few more must-see TV matchups, obviously, on a Saturday. Play action. And nice catch there. And again, we have to monitor what Zane Flores is going to do there. Trying to take advantage of Oregon's blunders by going for it at 4th down. Throw towards the sideline. Incomplete. Good defense. Double coverage there by Oregon. The free safety comes out of the play, coming across the field to help. 13-0 Oregon, 7:59 left in the first quarter. 3rd down and 10 on the Oregon 42. And Zane crushed. Good pressure by Oregon there. And Flores run for 2 yards to the Oregon 40. The QB, 4th down and 8 at the Oregon 40. And you would assume they would punt, but, because if you don't, Oregon will score probably in like one play if they go to Dak deep. So. And there's the punt. Westball punt, 40 yards for a touchback. I like what happened right there for Zane Flores. He saved his team and put him in position to go for that 4th down right here. Will they or won't he? I don't know, but he didn't just stand there like a statue. He played the pocket and tried to make a positive play. Yeah, and that's definitely important, 100%. He's not Hoss Hedgie. Hedgie gave that. All right, so far so good here for the Ducks. We want to see good offense. You want to see the running game, succeed with Noah Whittington and all the other individuals that they're 5-6 deep at running back. They got a lot of good wide receiver and tight end talent with Sadiq and many, many others, as we've seen already here early on with Decorian Moore getting his first long touchdown in his young and bright Oregon Duck career. And, it's the best talented 5-star recruit since DeAnthony Thomas. And again, showing his speed, his athleticism, his hands, his football IQ. And again, I know he's going to make a lot of big plays. Dante to Dante all year, baby. More to more. Noah Whittington run for 9 yards to the Oregon 29. 2nd down and 1 for the Oregon Ducks. Let's go, baby.
Now they're facing the number 16 in the country and the defending Big Ten champions who are off the hot start, and so is this guy. Whittington.
Nice run by Whittington.
Before the first quarter.
Yeah, could have 100 before the first quarter's over.
One of the biggest transfer running backs in college football, but production counts, and no Whittington's showing.
False start there by Jaden Lamar. Come on, baby. 5-yard penalty.
Playing for McDonough Hughes. It's just that when our young guys got here, we didn't know how good they were. We had a guy who's back.
Come on, Oregon. You got to have it together. You don't want to have any self-inflicted wounds here.
The thing about that, though, for Oregon is, yeah, they go 4 or 5 deep at running back, competitive, but it's a self-starting schedule offense. Not all the little players.
Let's go, baby. Come on, Jaden. Got to limit those penalties. Yes. Lauren in the building. Appreciate you. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on the dono train. We'll look for 5 to 15 new subs. Appreciate you. Shotgun set. Handoff up the middle. Look at that speed. Bouncing it to the outside. Oh, my. Rumbling and a bumbling. First down, Oregon. Move the chains. Beautiful. Lamar making up for the penalty. My goodness. Great blocking up front by that O-line. $3 holla. Thank you so much. Stacks. Racks. With a little Cactus Jack. Little screen pass there. Appreciate you. We're at 3:97 to go on the dono train. And we'll be doing Mariners and Braves just as soon as this game is over. And touchdown, Oregon. Oh, my. Hill Jr. getting in, man. Oregon is so explosive. But again, once we end up playing, teams within the Big Ten, obviously we know it's going to be much harder. But if you remember the struggles for Oregon early in the season with maybe an overcomplicated playbook by Will Stein, they've definitely simplified it this year. And, whether it be an end around or just a long pass, from more to more, we have so many different ways that we can torch you. And just like that, what a great opportunity for the Oregon Ducks to get the job done there. Unbelievable. 19-0 Oregon. Sarah in the building. What's good? Yeah, I ended up watching a good chunk of that game. Obviously, Iowa not ranked this year. Iowa State, the better team, and obviously a low-scoring affair. And, obviously, if you end up having a new quarterback and they haven't really adjusted into the system yet, then sometimes there will be some growing pains with that. So. Obviously, we went for 2 already once and got stopped. 19-0 Oregon already here early on. Going for 2 again. I mean, just take the extra point. But, I guess they want to be able to get that score back to what it could have been, 21. And Moore with a little bootleg, back of the end zone, tipped. And Sadiq caught. But that's going to be a penalty. Illegal shift. Come on, Oregon. I mean, and it's all about those little things. Yeah, we're up 19-0. And again, essentially a lot of people would say, hey, the game's over. You won. But it's like even the little things, you want to make sure that, you're taking care of business. Because again, when you start playing, Ohio State and the Penn States and, Washington at the end of the year in Seattle, we cannot make these type of mistakes. And now they decide to go for the extra point. Atticus Sappington up and good. 20-0 Oregon. Yeah, it kind of feels like it might be the beginning of the end of the Chiefs. And again, Chargers and Herbert look great. And they got the Eagles next week, the Chiefs. They could start off 0-2. And I know the Bills and the Ravens and the Broncos are probably salivating, thinking that this could finally be the year that they end up coming out on top in the AFC instead of the Chiefs. And we already know with the Lions and the Packers, the Bucks, the Falcons and Rams and Lions and, a few of these other teams, Eagles and Commanders. There's going to be a lot of battling in the NFC, same as the AFC. 20-0 Oregon. Let's go. And Sapenting with a kickoff 55, 65 yards for a touchback. And obviously it's looking like we're going to end up getting the dub here, but we need to be able to get the dub with the Mariners here after this stream is over. Victor Robles is back, and I'm really hoping that they implement Leo Rivas on a regular, everyday basis, because that could be the difference between us making the wild card or not even making the playoffs at all. Way too many L's the Mariners have been taking lately. It's like in the last 20, 21, 22 games, we've only won like 3 or 4 times. It's been definitely depressing to say the least. But at least Oregon is doing well here early to give me a little bit of joy before we go into the matchup here later this afternoon. Yeah, Herbert was great, but you also noticed like Omarion Hampton and a lot of the receivers, Keenan Allen coming back to the team. Offensive line played really, really well. Defense actually played pretty well for the Chargers. And again, for a lot of those matchups for Herbert, that was his first win. They've only won like one time prior to that. It was like 7 out of the last 8, we're going to the Chiefs. And so nice to be able to see Herbert get a little bit of love and pub. And again, AFC, NFC are up for grabs this year. Shotgun set, handoff up the middle, and a nice short game there. Fields with the short game. Sarah with $1. Every dollar counts. Appreciate you. Stacks. Racks with a little cactus jack. Bang, bang. We're at 4:96 to go. And another short gain up the middle. Fields again. Appreciate you. Yeah, I mean, we could be like 8 games, back. Think about all the other teams if they were, playing really, really good ball. I mean, we could be at a position right now where we're totally out of it. So to be kind of still in the mix, you have to be thankful for that. Of only winning 3-4 games out of the last 20, we should be much farther behind with another short gain right up the middle. And that's 4th down. 4th down and 1 yard gain by Fields. They're going a lot of Fields lately. And we got a timeout here by Oregon. Whittington with a touchdown. Dante Moore to Decorian Moore for a long touchdown. And Hill Jr. with the 3rd touchdown.
Oregon was more confused than we were the first time out of the half. I think all 3.
Yeah, Rangers have been hot. The Tampa Bay Rays have been hot. So it's not really ideal. Right now. But again, we could be in a much worse, position than we are right now. So that was the roughest stretch of the year. We're not good on the road. Pitching hasn't been good. For the most part. Starters once in a while have been, pretty solid. Like Logan yesterday was great, but Spire blew it in the pen. And, we have to be able to find a way to, have good starting pitching, good bullpen, good defense, which has been pretty good for the year. And then the hitting. We can't score 1 to 3 runs and get no home runs and think we're going to win when 50% of our total runs are home runs. So you got a home run at least 2 to 4 times a game, get to 5 runs or more, 7 to 10 hits, and have solid starting and bullpen pitching. And if we get those categories, then we'll have a chance. But when we don't hit those categories, you lose most of the time. And it's been rough. And a 2-yard run there by Zane. 1st down, Cowboys. Yeah, AJ Lee is back. And obviously on a long-term deal, not just a one-and-done appearance or just a drive-by type of sequence. We're going to see her for a couple years, which will be exciting for WWE with some of the new rivalries that they can end up having after her and Becky Lynch go at it with Seth and CM Punk, and obviously that tag that we'll see at some point. 2-yard gain by Rodney Fields Jr. to the Oklahoma State 38. Second down and 8 at the Oklahoma State 38. 20-0 Oregon. Joe in the building. What's good? Yes, that definitely will help. 100%. Good sideline coverage there by Oregon on that first down play. Flores, pass complete to Freeman, 3 yards, and they're just dinking and doinking. I mean, they can't really do a whole lot against this Oregon D early. You know, you're getting a lot of halfback dives up the middle with Fields, but you're not getting the same result like Noah Whittington did when you're going 65 yards to the house. And then if they're not running it up the middle or scrambling with the quarterback for a yard or two, it's just a little slant, you know, or a little screen, and that ain't going to cut it going against Oregon. Screen pass. Yeah. And we got a false start here on Noah McKinney. Third down and 10 at the Oklahoma State 36.
Crowd's going to cheer for themselves. Another pre-snap penalty.
Pre-snap penalties are the worst. And Flores pass complete to Christian Fitzpatrick, 35 yards. Finally get themselves in position to score. First down, Cowboys. Wow. And we're not used to the Oregon defense giving up too many big plays, but that's the first big play the defense has given up. Great throw, great catch by Flores to Fitzpatrick. Move the chains. And hopefully that doesn't happen too often. Wide open in the middle of the field like that, too. Looked like Oregon was playing some kind of zone coverage there. Yeah, he was way open. Little crossing route in the middle of the field, in the middle of the zone that's wide open. Or are they playing man? Yeah, they're playing man. And right there, right in between the sweet spot, nobody there for about 5 yards. Easy completion by Flores. It's a nice 7-yard run there by Trent Howland, excuse me. Second down and 3 at the Oregon 22. Nice run by Howland. And that is going to be the end of the first quarter. There we go. 20-0 Oregon. We'll take that. Not a perfect first quarter, you know, a few mistakes, you know, by both teams with some penalties and whatnot. But, you know, again, this is not the same Oregon team like last year that was kind of stumbling out of the gates and barely beating opponents. You know, it feels like this team is a little bit better than last year. And I think Dante Moore will be better than Dylan Gabriel. It'll be closer to like a Bo Nix type of player. And again, that's what we're going to need if we're going to be able to compete, you know, with Penn State, Ohio State, and obviously on the road against the Huskies in Seattle at the end of the year. Nice job, Oregon. 20-0 Ducks.
Big time, best time, all the time. Come see the Royal Caribbean.
So take a look at some of the other scores and what else we got going on. Not a lot of good matchups. Obviously, Iowa State was a good matchup at 9 a.m. Low-scoring affair every single year. Iowa State ended up getting that dub, 16-13, very, very close. And then the only really good ranked matchup will be Michigan 15 versus Oklahoma 18, and that'll be on ABC at 4:30. So I'll probably tune into a little bit of that while I'm calling the Mariners and the Braves game. And as far as that is concerned. It'll be Bryce Miller on the mound for the Mariners versus Hurston Waldrep. And Hurston has been a phenom, 4-0 with a 1.01 ERA, which is not ideal. You know, we hopefully can find a way to get that dub. But if the pitching is going to be like it was by Chris Sale yesterday, could be a long day. And I hope we can get the dub because Castillo on the mound tomorrow ain't going to do a whole lot. And it looks like the lineup got released just a while ago. Randy in left, Cal at catcher, Julio at center, Naylor's back, hell yeah, at first, Gino at third, Polo at DH, Crawford at shortstop, Robles in right, and Rivas at second. Interesting. But at least we got Rivas in the lineup, and they got him at second, and then they got Polo at DH. So I think that isn't too bad. That's much better than having Mitch Garver at DH, and we have Robles and Rivas in the lineup. So I like what I'm seeing there. Okay, I got to send this to my best friend. Make sure he sees the lineup. And then at halftime, I'll make some adjustments, obviously, so that way I have less to do as we go in. All right, what do we got? We got Randy, and then we got Cal, and then we got Julio, and then we got Naylor. So let me do this. I can start to kind of multitask now while we're at commercial.
This river wasn't dammed in a day, and GMC trucks weren't built overnight. Like every American achievement, they are a result of dedication. Over 100 years dedicated to the art of engineering and the ambition to always move this country forward. Give servers an APR plus no monthly payments until next year.
All right, Naylor, where are we at here? Naylor at fourth, Gino at fifth. I mean, especially I'm not going to have a whole lot of time for prep. I already made the thumbnail in advance, luckily, so I won't have to worry about that. And that Polo is at DH. But it's probably the best lineup we've had all year.
First 15 minutes.
Yeah, good effort. We're shooting ourselves in the foot a couple times here. We got to clean up some things. But
Penalty there on a false start. First down and 15 at the Oregon 23.
See how many we can get to score today. Appreciate it. The penalty marker down. We start the second quarter. False start. Offense number 24. 5-yard penalty. First down. That's three. The crowd will continue to applaud themselves. Allen jumped early. Cowboys don't need to entice this crowd anymore with any more penalties than they need. They're down 20. But this drive has looked good. So
Howland run for 8 yards there to the Oregon 15. Second down and 7 at the Oregon 15-yard line.
23 Allen had the penalty. He's going to get that 5 and about 5 more back. Tough run. Yeah, nice counter design again. And a man-to-man blocking up front and full backside tackle.
All right, JP at 7, Robles at 8 in right field. I'm almost done here. And Rivas at second. All right, I'm done there. Perfect. Now I just got to modify the Brave lineup at halftime, and we'll be good to go. Howland, run up the middle there, 5-yard gain. And good stop by the Ducks. Nice gang tackle.
One of the best players for this Oregon defense is Amari Washington. Watch Oklahoma State right here. 2 of them are going to handle the speed at that defensive tackle.
Because Garver isn't good. He can't catch. He can't hit. He can't defend. Harry Ford is already a better player, we feel, than him. I mean, even though he struck out in his first MLB debut at bat yesterday. And, Leo Rivas gives us a better chance, if we put him at DH or having him actually play as an everyday player. Garver is a liability. Shouldn't even be on the team like Luis Castillo. And nice run right up the middle. First down, Cowboys. Nice run there by Howland again. I mean, there's a few players on the team like Dylan Moore and a few others. You know, if we would have gotten rid of them sooner, Dylan Moore, Donovan Solano, and again, we probably won't have Castillo or Garver on the team next year. And, you know, we got to make sure we're maximizing every spot so that way that we can, you know, make this playoff push. And having Robles and Rivas in the lineup every day moving forward is essential for us making it. If those guys aren't playing every day, we may not make it. First and goal, shotgun set. Keeper by Zane, and nice gang tackle by the Ducks.
Reacts outside. That's one guy with not quite the lead speed. Not helping the corner that time. Making it a little easier for him. If they keep it with Allen pounding on the floors, he's going to put it up.
Second and goal. Fade route incomplete.
Seven, 6'1" tall corner, young defensive back group, but there's not enough. Looking all the way back, can't do it anymore.
One-handed Odell Beckham Jr. type of grab attempt, but good defense and good coverage there by Oregon.
This is a 15 play of the drive. Third down and goal.
Third down and goal. Good defense there by Oregon. Good pressure. Pass incomplete. And they line up for the field goal. Field goal is up and good. 20-3, Oregon.
So they'll bring out the field goal unit. That means Logan Ward. He hit from 42 and 39 last week in their opening win against UT Martin. This will be 23 yards out. And he's back up, and the Cowboys are on the board. So long drives.
But that might be the best lineup that we've had all year. Arosarena, Cal Raleigh, Julio Rodriguez, Josh Naylor, Eugenio Suarez, Jorge Polanco at DH, JP Crawford, Victor Robles, Leo Rivas. To me, that's the best lineup we've had all year. And again, we got Bryce on the mound, and hopefully Bryce will be able to, give up 3 runs or less, but preferably maybe 1 or 2. Hopefully the bats come alive. We score 5 runs, 7 to 10 hits. But again, obviously the pitcher that we're going against has got an ERA of 1, which is not ideal. And we saw how good Chris Sale was yesterday. So, hopefully we'll be able to get a lucky home run or 2 early, and we'll be able to do some damage. Judah in the building. What's good? 20-3 here early on. I'm going to take a quick peek to see if they've released the Brave lineup so I can kind of get all of this prepped before, obviously, the next stream, which we're going to be doing as soon as this game is over. Mariner lineup has been released, and looks like Atlanta's as well. So let me see what I got here. All right, Profar in left, Olsen at first, Albies at second, Baldwin at DH instead of catcher. Let me change that. Longer commercials for football than compared to baseball. Ha-Seong Kim at shortstop. Ronald Acuna Jr. in the lineup.
You use this much syrup. Well, my skincare routine requires pump top. I'll make a mess. I'm taking this. You took all of them.
Where's Ronald at? 6th spot in right field. All right, Ronald Acuna Jr. Where are we at? Right field. Okay.
Slow day.
And then Harris at 7.
Get live, local, and primetime games on mobile with NFL Plus.
All right, Harris. The second in center. Okay, boom. And no Jake Fraley.
CBS Sports Network. UCLA Bruins.
No Marcel Ozuna.
The road is prime time.
Nacho Alvarez at third in the 9 hole. And then, Sean Murphy? Okay.
Yeah, it's almost bedtime for you.
All right, I got one more move. I already got everything else updated. This is going to be an easier transition going into the Mariner stream against the Braves. And is that Murphy in the 8 and the catcher? I think we're good to go. All right. I'm glad that they got all that updated. I got the Mariner lineup updated. I got the Brave lineup updated. We're sitting at a 23 score. Commercial just ended. And there we go. Westball with the kickoff, 63 yards, first down and 10 at the Oregon 25.
It's time for working on a win presented by the Home Depot. And let's take you off the seeds a little bit. Your head coach Dan Lanning and his team. All right, you got 3 seconds to grab.
Penalty on Oregon, false start by Bryant Jr. Come on, Gary. First down and 15 at the Oregon 20. A lot of self-inflicted wounds here with Oregon early, but
One card at a time. He's pulled a red card about 3 of these series so far, or Will Stein and the offense has.
we've gained 8 subs already. Shout out to all the new subs that we've acquired.
Started to think about what will Will Stein try to do
48 subs to go to 21,700.
through this whole thing. Remember these first 3-4 games.
And we're already at 7,000 views on the stream. We should be able to get over 10,000 before the game is up. Yeah, Atlanta has been much better lately, but obviously, injuries and, bad play definitely hurt them. Moore scrambling in the pocket, finds a man. Go, go, go. The 30, the 40, down the sideline. Tiptoeing in my Jordans. First down, Oregon. Move the chains. Beautiful play. Sadiq, baby. And he is going to be a top 5 tight end in college football this year. Some people are saying more top 3 or maybe even number 1. But, a tight end that moves like a wide receiver, got great hands, great awareness. Sadiq is special. First down and 10, hand off to Harris. And that's just a 2-yard gain as he slips. Good tackle there by the Cowboys. Second down and 8 on the Oregon 48, 20-3 Ducks. Bo Nix, Dylan Gabriel, Dante Moore. Let's go. And we got Akili Smith's son as the backup quarterback as well. So, they've had like Novosad and a few others that are sitting on the sideline also. But, we definitely are recruiting on a very high level. But, again, the best recruit that I'm excited about is Decorian Moore because, again, we haven't had a DeAnthony Thomas type of athlete since him. And you need a guy like that, a Jeremiah Smith, a Ryan Williams, from Ohio State and Bama. You need guys like that, specifically Jeremiah Smith. You have a guy like that, it really does open up the game and, give you an advantage. And we finally have our very own Jeremiah Smith on the Ducks in 2025. Third down, and Lamar for a run of 5 yards. First down, Oregon. Move the chains. Moore, pass complete to Benson. Touchdown, Oregon. My goodness, we are on fire. 26-3 Ducks. Let's go. I will be watching the Husky game later tonight, though. I'm a fan of Jonah Coleman. Damon Williams is kind of like the college version of Kyler Murray. And again, Oregon plays Washington in Seattle last game of the year. That might be like must-see TV. Besides Oregon going to Penn State on the road, which will be must-see TV as well. Obviously, we'll have a chance to lose in both of those games. But I love games where you have a chance to lose That's really what builds a lot of character. And, you have heartache and heartbreak, but you also have joy. What a catch by Oregon. My goodness, Malik Benson, you're special.
Watch this. The track people here in Oregon will look at the time and end up on this. Here's the receiver to the right side, but watch this throw. And it's a sprint. Boom. 42-yard touchdown. Look at the catch again. He's going to catch the back end of this ball. Exactly.
Big Ten Network, 8 o'clock. And usually you're going to have Washington play like the last game of the night, at least the first 2 weeks of the season. And that might be a regular thing until they end up getting more into conference play. There we go. 27-3 Oregon. We are rolling. And again, I like Dante more than Dylan Gabriel. I feel with like Dylan Gabriel, he was like a Tim Tebow minus the running, and some of the throws were pretty, but it was, the delivery was a little sluggish, compared to like a Michael Penix Jr. or, Herbert or Bo Nix prior to Gabriel. And then now obviously having, Dante Moore, it's more of like a Bo Nix type of player. And I think that suits Oregon a little bit better. Mike in the building. What's good? Did you watch any college football yet this morning? I watched Iowa State this morning. We got Michigan and Oklahoma, 2 ranked teams coming up in a couple hours. I'll be watching that as well. And number 6, Oregon, my team, taking care of business here against Oklahoma State, 27-3 at Autzen. No surprise. And again, simplified the playbook, Will Stein, which is great. And again, we may not have Dylan Gabriel, and we might not have Bucky Irving. We might not have Tez Johnson. We might not have some of those, individuals that gave us success the last few years. But, Dante Moore, DeCorian Moore, Noah Whittington, and, Sadiq Benson, and many, many others. Defense is good as well. I'm definitely excited about, the chance of Oregon being a top 5 team the rest of the year, and also being one of the teams that actually has a chance to make a deep run. And if they're lucky enough, maybe, they'll be able to go, to a natty. But it seems like if the college football rules stay the same, it'll be better if Oregon loses once or twice. Like if they end up losing to Penn State on the road and the Huskies on the road, that might actually be better to go 10-2 rather than going 11-1 or 12-0 and then, having a bye for like a month like they did last year, because that's what killed us. Ohio State had a couple losses and they ended up playing every week and it helped them. You shouldn't be, not rewarded. You should be rewarded when you end up, having an undefeated record, but essentially they penalized every undefeated team, with a couple weeks to a month off, and, you have a couple losses. That might actually be the way to go. So I don't like losing during the regular season, but if that's going to give us a better shot to be able to play weekly and make a deep run in the college football playoff, then maybe going 10-2 and losing to the Huskies and the Nittany Lions might actually be better than going 11-1 or 12-0 if we're going to have that format. So how's it going with the Georgia game? And Atticus Sappington with the kickoff there, 50 yards. And Sam Jackson, the 5th return with a 12-yard gain. Now Oklahoma State on the 17-yard line, and they're going to try to get a touchdown before halftime, and Oregon is going to prevent the touchdown from happening, hopefully, and give up a field goal or preferably nothing. And maybe we can get a fumble or an interception to get us some good field position here. What's your question, Cody? Let's go Ducks, baby. Shout out to Collegiate Art Designs for being a NCAA sponsored company that makes all of the Oregon Duck chains. I'm friend with the owner. And again, one of the best things that you can actually have to rep as an Oregon fan besides these gloves. And those are game used versus Auburn in the Natty. I'm always looking for that kind of rare memorabilia. Those are from 2010, and I also have the green ones but I can't use those on stream because I have a green screen. Those other ones I usually wear at the games. These ones usually just for home. But, some of the first wing gloves that Oregon ever made, and they are swaggy. They definitely, the cameramen and the camera women, when you go to games and you got the chain and you got the gloves and the jersey, you're almost 100% guaranteed to get on TV. The problem is not very many people have the gloves. More people have the chain in the different colors, but the gloves are extremely rare. One of the coolest, accessories that you can have as an Oregon fan, just like the trident, as a Mariner fan. Pass incomplete. And Howland run for 2 yards there. 3rd down and 13 on the Oklahoma State 14, 3rd and long. I think we have a good chance of winning today, and I think we're going to more than likely lose tomorrow, Cody. We got Luis Castillo on the mound. It's at 9 a.m. on Roku. I mean, the only way the Mariners are going to win is if Luis Castillo pitches well, which I don't know if he can, and we score like 8 to 10 runs, which I don't know if we will. So now if Castillo pitches great and we score 8 to 10 runs, yeah, we can win tomorrow. But realistically, we'll probably score 3 runs or less. Castillo will give up probably 5 or more, and we'll probably end up losing tomorrow. That's why it's so important that we win today, so that way we avoid the sweep. But again, if we win today, we will have a chance for tomorrow. But realistically, based on our road woes, I would assume we'll win today, lose tomorrow, and then we'll come back home to T-Mobile, and that's when we're going to get back on track. But as long as Rivas and Robles are in the lineup every day moving forward, that's going to give us the best chance of making the playoffs. If Rivas and Robles aren't in the lineup, we're in trouble. But the lineup that we have today might be the best lineup I've seen all year. And then we got a false start there. 3rd down and 18 on Oklahoma State. 27-3. They're going in the wrong direction. 27-3 Ducks. Let's go. And Freddie Brock run for 11 yards, but that's not going to cut it. 4th down and 7 at the Oklahoma State 20, and another punt is on the way. West Paul punt 43 yards, and Gary Bryant Jr. is there at the Oregon 37, and there's a very good possibility we're going to get another touchdown here before halftime. Let's go.
West Paul's busy punt. And Gary Bryant still waiting for a return. Won't have a shot at this one either.
Come on, Ducks.
7 minutes, 52 seconds remaining first half here in Eugene, Oregon. And right now it's all Ducks.
Let's go, baby. All Ducks all day. 27-3 Oregon.
Sometimes hell is delivered.
I got to double check the lineups here. I'm doing the Mariner and Brave game right after this, so I want to make sure that I got everything situated appropriately here. Got to multitask. I've already made the thumb in advance, so we're done there. All right, let me take a look at the lineups that just got released. All right, got Miller on the mound and Waldrep for the Braves, okay? And then, let's see here. Randy in left, Cal catching, Julio and center, Naylor at first. Finally, Naylor is back from being sick. Gino at third, Polo at DH, JP at short, Rivas at second in the 9-hole, and Victor Robles is back off the suspension, which is great, and off the injury as well. Okay, we're good there. And let's look at Atlanta's. Profar in left, Olsen at first, Albies at second, Baldwin at DH, Ha-Seong Kim at short, Ronald Acuna Jr. in right, playing today, didn't play yesterday. Neither did JP. Harris the second in center, Sean Murphy at catching, and Nacho Alvarez Jr. at third. All right, we are good. All right, so I'm all good to go. So as soon as this game is over, we'll transition immediately into the Mariners and Braves, which is going to start at 4:15 Pacific. So hopefully it'll be a smooth transition where this game will end around, I don't know, 4:05, and then I'll have like 5-10 minutes to prepare, and then we'll be good to go.
That's where that was.
New York, coming up on the Geico halftime report. We'll get you caught up on the best of today's.
Let's go, Oregon. One more touchdown before half, baby. Let's get it.
Losing last week, they're down 7-0 to Troy. Goose Crowder to Trey Taylor. This game and several others from the East Coast in weather delays right now. Good thing we're in Eugene with Nescafé and Jenny. Yeah, the sun's almost trying to come.
And I usually try to go to at least one game a year, sometimes two, but it depends on money and travel, tickets, and obviously me grinding, to obviously on the channel as well. So, but I'm hoping I'll be able to go to at least one game, and usually I get pretty good seats, within the first 20 rows, sometimes front row, right behind the duck bench. And I'm telling you, the environment in Eugene is my favorite place to be besides being in Seattle for a Mariner game. I'll go to Blazer games here and there a few times a year as well. Little reverse, flea flicker, and then right back to him with the screen. Go, go, go. Blockers downfield. The 40. Ooh, big hit. Wow. Big play. First down, Oregon. And we're definitely we're opening up the tricks in the bag. Will Stein in that playbook. You never know if you're going to get reverses or flea flickers. 5 guys downfield blocking. I love it, man. Big 38-yard gain. Trips right. Shotgun set, little screen pass. And nice tackle there by the Cowboys. Complete to Gary Bryant Jr. for 7 yards. Second down and 3 at the Oklahoma State 28. And we got a timeout here. Injured Cowboy. Hopefully he's okay. I don't wish injuries on anybody.
Today's student athletes can now receive unprecedented.
Gained a few more subs. 10 subs gained so far.
$20 million from each school every year. That's an addition.
46 subs to go to 21,700. Shout out to the 10 new subs that we've acquired already, and we've been making some good pace. We're at 7,800 views and counting. We'll definitely be in that 10 to 15,000 range, which is great. And we definitely have been turning a pretty good corner, not with just Mariner streams, typically getting 2,000 to 9,000 views, with an occasional, 10,000 to 25,000 stream, like the Home Run Derby where we hit 25,000, and the All-Star game where we hit, somewhere in that 10 to 16,000 range. And again, we're starting to gain a little bit of momentum with the Mariners, with the NFL, with college football, and pretty much everything that we're doing. As Smith is hobbling to the sideline there. Hopefully he's okay. Looks like his own player went into his knee. And that's the worst, when you get your own player hitting you in the knee with their helmet, not paying attention. That's how you can tear an ACL, MCL, PCL, or have an Achilles issue. Second down, pass to Decorian Moore. And that is incomplete. Third down and 3 for the Ducks.
Sometimes you have receivers that press coverage. You can go free or you can block down. This time the outside, the slot man just keeps going. Has to get rid of the ball. Good avoidance, but the rush from that Oklahoma State attack got a winning play for the defense.
This is a top Grantham player here. And it's Sadiq to the backfield.
Sadiq in the backfield. Hand off to Sadiq, the tight end. You never know what you're going to get with the Oregon Ducks. First down, Oregon. And Dak. Oh, my. Touchdown, Oregon. Wow. Decorian, I mean, Dak is so special. I mean, again, we haven't had a player like this since DeAnthony Thomas, and that's a 25-yard touchdown run, more to more, 25 yards. And again, you know, he's going to be in the Heisman running. We might actually have two guys, you know, Dante Moore and Decorian Moore, that are going to be in that mix. Anytime you can end up running a little end around or jet sweep. And obviously that will be reviewed. Look pretty close. We'll see if they end up giving him the touchdown or have him go out of bounds, you know, within the 1-2 yard line, but it was close. Dak is so fast, man. Let's take a look to see if he actually steps out of bounds or not. He doesn't go out of bounds with, I mean, he's diving, and obviously looks like the ball crosses the plane before the leg and foot goes out of bounds. I mean, they might actually rule him down at the 6-inch yard line or 1 yard line. It's close.
I thought Gary just made a great point. That's just the awareness more right there, understanding where he was, knowing his body part wasn't going to.
Obviously, the Oregon Duck fan in all of us wants, you know, Dak to get that second touchdown after that long receiving, you know, grab. But again, you can run jet sweeps, bubble screens, reverses. He can just run routes and, you know, score touchdowns that way. You know, after looking at it in this like fifth time, I don't know. That one I might call back. You know, that one might get called back.
True freshman,
That happened in a hurry.
What's the call? You know, the first initial couple, you know, looks at like he might have gotten it, but based on the last few camera angles from behind, it looks like he misses it just barely. You know, maybe out at like the maybe 6-inch yard line, like, you know, just inside the 1 yard line. And they're still reviewing it, huh? Yeah, we want to make sure we get the calls correct, you know. We don't want to have a call. I mean, obviously, we're going to score no matter what, you know, but obviously getting Dak the touchdown for his personal stat line would be great. But, yeah, it looks like he is just short, you know, maybe 6 inches, you know, from the pylon. I don't think you can see any replay of any angle that definitively he gets in. I mean, on the field, it was called touchdown. I mean, unless they can say that they don't have enough evidence to overturn it, but I think there is enough evidence to overturn it and have him out at the 6-inch yard line. And then they can, you know, they probably won't give him the ball back again. It'll, you know, go to someone else, you know, running back or whatever, but we'll see what they call here. Huskies tonight is at 8:00 on Big Ten Network. I will be watching.
total offense approaching 400. After further review, the ruling on the field with a touchdown is upheld.
The ruling is upheld, so they didn't have enough evidence to overturn it. So again, should it have been a touchdown? Probably not, if we're being honest. You know, probably out at the 6-inch yard line. But again, they called it touchdown on the field. If they didn't, then it would have probably stayed, you know, not a touchdown call. So it is what it is. Extra point is up by Atticus Sappington and good. 34-3 Oregon. No, I'm human, Cody. I'm not going to be able to do 3 streams in a row. I'm not going to be sitting here for 12 hours straight. You know, I got to be able to spend some time with my pup and relax a little bit. You know, I'm not AI. I'm not a robot. You know, I'm going to have to, you know, even doing 2 in a day, you know, sometimes is tough. It gets tiring. And you got to remember, I'm streaming every day pretty much throughout the whole year. So it's not like, you know, I'm taking a week off in between streams. So, but I will be watching the Husky game later tonight.
Blocking in front of it. A week ago, it was Decorian Moore doing the blocking. This time,
And Sappington kickoff 65 yards for a touchback. Got 5:46 left for the Cowboys. Obviously, essentially, this game, you know, is over. And again, we're up 31. You know, and again, the chance of Oklahoma State coming back and making this interesting is probably not likely. But Again, we want to be able to see, the different, player position groups and how they play. And hopefully we don't have a lot of self-inflicted wounds like false starts and silly penalties. And at some point, we're going to be able to get some of the backups into the game to give them some reps as well, which is going to be good, especially when we go on the road to play Penn State and going on the road to play the Huskies at the end of the year in the last game in Seattle. So, again, so far, so good. Will Stein, simplifying the playbook has helped, and we look much better at the beginning of the year than we did last year with Dylan Gabriel, in my opinion. Flores pass complete to Christian Fitzpatrick for a loss of a yard, going in the wrong direction there. Second down and 11 on the Oklahoma State 24, 34-3 Ducks. Let's go, baby. And at some point, we're going to get a fumble or a pick. I would love a fumble for a touchdown or a pick six for a touchdown, but we might have to wait for that in the second half. Fields run for 2 yards. Third down and 9. And again, it's pretty much runs up the gut, little slants, little screen passes. And they had one big play, for a deep pass that converted, but that's really the only big play that Oregon's defense has given up. And again, it only led to a 3 for Oklahoma State. And Flores pass incomplete to Fitzpatrick. Now it's 4th down and 9. And I know you're down 31, but if you go for it here, Oregon will score in like one play. Big defense there by the Ducks. Lopa and company, I see you.
He's in the position this time that makes the play. I thought this at 31 position, but that's not a bad position to play. Like, you're in all the action.
What will Oklahoma State do? They're not dumb enough to go for it on 4th and 9, down 31. I know you're down 31, but again, you're on the 26-yard line. If you go for it and don't get it, we're going to score in one play. And they do the smart thing and punt. Fair caught by Gary Bryant Jr. on the Oregon 24. 4:20 left. And we are smoking the Cowboys.
And they don't have long to throw, and they're squatting on everything right now. You're not able to beat them to the ground.
6'1", 205 corner.
Jordan Davison run for no gain. Second down and 10 at the Oregon 24. Let's see if we can get one more touchdown here before half, and at the very least, a field goal. Oklahoma State's had some amazing players over the years, Thurman Thomas and Barry Sanders, and anyone that grew up in that same era as me remembers those guys very vividly on the Bills and the Lions. Two of the best running backs to ever suit up on that NFL level, and they were fantastic in college for Oklahoma State. Des Bryant from Oklahoma State as well. I remember the bowl game. I have it on VHS. Dante Moore pass complete to Justice Lowe for 9 yards to the Oregon 33. Third down and 1 for the Ducks. Yeah, I used to do, Cody, 3 streams in a day back in the day, but when you do that many, you get really burnt out quick. And especially if I'm going to be doing, streams the following day, I want to make sure I actually have a voice to be able to call the games and have the energy. So typically I'll stick to 2 as the max I'll do in a day, and I won't do 2 back-to-back that often. Usually I have to give myself a little bit of a rest. And big tackle there by the Cowboys on that hit on Justice Lowe on that previous play. Now let's see what Oregon's got cooking here on 3rd down and 1 at the Oregon 33. Let's keep moving the ball, baby. Go Ducks. And that's a first down. There we go. I didn't know if it was going to be a yard short or not. First down and 10. Hughes run for 6 yards to the Oregon 40. Second down and 4. 34-3 Ducks. Come on, baby. Let's go. Guy Hughes. I mean, we got so many running backs. We are so deep. Got a lot of good running backs, a lot of good wide receivers, tight ends, defense.
Wide receivers block on these plays. This is just so impressive. Jeremiah McClellan that time, a true freshman in there blocking.
Jay Harris with a 6-yard gain. First down, Oregon. Move the chains. Let's go. And again, for a hardcore Duck fan or even a new Duck fan, it's going to take a few weeks to kind of get used to all of the new personnel that is on this Oregon squad compared to last year's team. There definitely has quite a few new names to learn on offense and defense, including the backups. But a lot of athleticism, let me tell you. It definitely feels like a deeper team than last year. And that's the 2-minute warning, 34-3, Oregon. Now, I actually root for the Huskies. I like watching them play. I watched the full game of the Huskies yesterday. I'll watch them play tonight, and it's kind of nice to have them play the last college football game of the night. And Damon Williams is like a Kyler Murray, very fast, great arm. And if the Huskies wouldn't have went with a 2-quarterback system last year, they would have won a hell of a lot more games. And they got David Boston's son at wide receiver. You got Jonah Coleman, who's super underrated, one of the best running backs in the land, and he still doesn't get enough pub and credit by the media. Again, they're fun to watch. And again, I'm hoping one day it'll be Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, and Washington as like the top teams in the Big Ten. And again, I think Washington, to me, based on watching them in the offseason and recruiting and picking up the individuals that they did, I think that they are going to be the sleeper team in 2025 in college football. They're not ranked in the top 25. And, again, at some point they will be. And hopefully they'll be able to climb the ladder. But I don't mind, keeping tabs on the Cougs and the Beavers, for the Washington State and Oregon State fans. And, again, obviously I'll be rooting for those teams to win when they're just not playing Oregon. But obviously when they're playing, my favorite team, I'm going to want to win, of course, but watching the other teams from afar, it's nice to be able to see, obviously Oregon State has got a long ways to go. They dropped the first game to Cal, so they're probably going to have a bad year. Cougs barely won in week 1. They don't look very good either. But the Huskies and the Ducks, they look pretty fucking good. And obviously we have a little bit more talent on our roster than the Huskies do at this point. But again, I'm hoping for them to have the utmost success in 2025. A little overcast weather there at Autzen. Let's go, baby. Lots of players on the Huskies that I enjoy watching, though. And, I'm a Tampa fan, too. So it's like Vita Vea, Jalen McMillan, and then I got Bucky Irving and Tez Johnson from the Ducks. So to be able to get some Huskies and Ducks on my favorite NFL team, that's pretty exciting as well. Definitely can root for those Huskies on my team as well as the Ducks as well. All right, what is Will Stein, the offensive coordinator for Oregon, got in his bag? Dante Moore will be a Heisman candidate. And if DeCorian Moore keeps, scoring touchdowns like, anybody else in college football, we might have 2 Heisman finalists when it's all said and done. Moore, play action, little screen, blockers downfield, go, go, go. First down, Ducks. McClellan, baby. Jeremiah McClellan. And again, a lot of these names are going to be kind of new things to remember and learn if you are a Duck fan or a college football fan. Roster is quite a bit different from last year's team. But I like having this athletic righty and Dante Moore over Dylan Gabriel, the lefty. And going deep. And got a man. Incomplete. Goes for that post route to McClellan and just out of reach. Crowd would have lost their minds if he would have caught that. And then at least he laid out with a Superman type of attempt, but there was just out of reach. Loss of a yard by Jaden Lamar. Nice defense there by the Cowboys. Now 3rd down and 11 at the Oklahoma State 30. I don't know. Maybe starting last year. I don't know exactly when it started happening, but I maybe last year. I'm trying to remember if they did it the year before, but they did it last year as well. Under a minute to go before halftime, the Ducks in firm control, 34-3. And for all of the haters that said, oh, Ducks, you're not very good. You beat Montana State week 1. Well, hell, we're playing a team that is in a bigger conference in Oklahoma State, and we're playing just as good, if not better, against them. So, again, the competition will get tougher in the Big Ten as the season goes along. And the two that I have circled are Penn State on the road and then the Huskies at the end of the year. Those could be the two potential losses that Oregon could have. But everyone else on the schedule, Oregon should beat. You know, it's just those 2 games on the road will be the toughest games of the year, in my opinion. And then once we go to the college football playoff, then, you know, we'll see what happens. Is it time for Gundy to retire? No, but it would be nice if they had more money coming in, you know, to get that, you know, squad to be more competitive. And nice catch there. 1st down, Ducks. Timeout is called. 31 seconds left here before halftime. And we'll see if we can get one more touchdown. And again, we will start to see some backups implemented in the second half. And again, I assume we're going to be running the ball a lot more in the second half as well. I mean, we don't need to score 70, 80, 90 points. You know, we can end up getting the backups involved and methodically passing here and there. But again, I assume that this is usually the MO for Oregon. You know, we'll explode in the first half if we have the ability to, and then, you know, kind of slow the game down, bleed the clock out, and touchdown, Jaden Lamar. And just like that, 40-3 Oregon. So we're pacing for 80, but I would assume that we'll finish the game somewhere in the high 50s or in the 60s. I don't think necessarily we'll be in the 70s or 80s, but again, I don't really know how, you know, Dan Lanning isn't really the type of guy to run up the score. You know, we're already up 37 points. So, and if you bring backups in, they're not going to be as effective, you know, but I still want to see some amazing plays. Don't get me wrong, but, you know, I assume that we'll probably end the game in the high 50s or in the mid 60s. So, but pacing for 80 points is pretty fucking good for all the haters that said, Oregon's not that good. Well, I watched Arch Manning go against a really good defense, and he looked like dog shit last week. Much better today, but Arch Manning's footwork and his throwing motion is terrible. And again, he will not win the Heisman. He will not be the first pick in the draft. And honestly, I think Dante Moore is a better quarterback than Arch, in my opinion. So, but again, only time will tell as obviously we move forward in the season, and we'll see how Arch does against good competition as the year goes on. So Texas has got a great defense, no doubt about that, but that offense looked much better with Quinn Ewers last year than it does with Arch this year. And again, they played an easy opponent today, and Arch looked good today, but Arch got exposed in week 1 against the Buckeyes. But those are 2 of the top 3 defenses in the whole college football landscape, and, you know, Arch is probably happy he doesn't have to face that again. Yeah, I mean, you know, they had Thurman Thomas, you know, back in the day, Barry Sanders, Des Bryant, you know, but, you know, it's been, you know, what, Justin Blackmon, who didn't end up panning out. Remember him? So, I mean, they've had some guys that have, you know, produced at some level or another, but they haven't really been relevant. And, you know, even Oklahoma, after moving on from Stoops, really hasn't really been the same, but now they're ranked again, and they're going to go against a ranked Michigan squad at 4:30, and I'll be watching that matchup. But Oklahoma, definitely not the same team either, you know, whether you're an Oklahoma State fan or an Oklahoma fan. And extra point is up and good, 41-3 Oregon.
Tackle lands on his left ankle or foot. I thought that hurt him a little bit. And right at the end, now he lands on that left ankle and knee.
Right. I mean, honestly, if Gundy actually got funding and got some more NIL booster money and they could get some better players, again, they could save his job, but they don't really invest a whole lot. It sounds like, based on the reports that I was reading, compared to a lot of other colleges, they don't really get a lot of support. And obviously it shows, because obviously if they did and had better players, we would not be up 41-3. Maybe the score is, 28-14 or something like that, so I'm hoping one day that they'll be competitive. But as you guys know, with over 100 Division I teams, when you watch games in college football on the weekly, there's usually only a couple ranked top 25 matchups a week. There's a lot of like lopsided matchups that create lopsided outcomes like this. So, yeah, Oklahoma football in general, I agree. But we will see today if Oklahoma beats Michigan. And if Oklahoma can beat Michigan, and we know Michigan isn't the greatest either after Harbaugh left, but that would be a good win, for that particular team, the Sooners, obviously, in 2025. All right, we're at halftime, 41-3 Oregon. Go Ducks. And then I'm doing the Mariners and Braves at 4:15. So obviously we know Oklahoma State is not going to come back and win, and hopefully they make it to at least 17 or 20 points before the game is over, I hope. But, for at least their sake. Obviously, if we end up winning, 68-3, it's demoralizing and whatnot. But, again, games will be closer for Oregon as we open up into Big Ten conference play down the road. But really, the two games that Oregon really only has a chance to lose, I feel, based on our squad this year, is Penn State on the road and then the Huskies on the road, the last game of the regular season. Every other game should be a win, as long as we don't have any major injuries to Dante Moore, DeCorian Moore, and the defense. And again, there will be another team in that mix that might give us a little bit of a scare. But, we should be able to take care of most of the opponents, and we should be a top 5 team pretty much the rest of the way. Yeah, I know.
We're letting a little bit of the sound effects on offense. And then we just have to match up in certain places and make plays.
I don't know. Penn State is really good this year, and they got Ohio State's defensive coordinator that beat us. He joined Penn State and went to the rival. So, they got a good quarterback. They got a good team. And that environment is like coming to Autzen. It's not, they're going to end up having a whiteout. Everyone's going to be jumping around. There's going to be towels, waving. I mean, it's going to be the hardest game for Oregon, no doubt, just like, Oregon playing Ohio State, in Autzen, and we barely won right there at the end. But what happened? Will Howard ended up getting revenge and payback with Chip Kelly, and they beat us in the playoffs. So, and honestly, I think it will be better if we end up losing. Because if we end up losing to Penn State and Washington and we go 10-2, we will end up playing every week in the college football playoff. If we go 11-1 or 12-0 and we end up having a bye and we have like a month off, we could potentially lose like we did last year to the Buckeyes. So I want us to continuously play. And as long as the college football playoff is not going to reward teams for going undefeated or, only losing a game, maybe it's better that you lose a game or two like the Buckeyes did last year, and then you play every week, and keep fresh, instead of having 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month off, and then your players get a little, out of the mix. They're, not as sharp, and then you end up losing. Because if you notice in the college football playoff last year, every team that had an amazing record that had the long bye lost. Not one team won. So if you have, that much time off, it almost ends up being a curse of having a quote unquote good record. So, but Penn State definitely could beat us. And honestly, the Huskies this year are the sleeper team in college football. In Seattle at the last game of the year, we could potentially lose that game. Could we win it? Of course. But I think the Huskies, they're getting slept on. They're going to be in the top 25 sooner than later, and that's going to end up making for one of the best Oregon-Washington matchups that we've seen since we faced them with Michael Penix Jr. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. And again, what would you rather have? Oregon go undefeated and then lose in the first round in the college football playoff like last year, or go 10-2 and win the Natty? I would rather go 10-2 and win the Natty, or at least get to the Natty. So, and again, the first time that we go to the Natty under Dan Lanning, we may not win, but it kind of feels like if Lanning is here for the next 10 years, we should be able to go once or twice and hopefully win at least once. I want to be able to see a Natty with Oregon before I die, and I want to see a Mariners pennant,
before I die as well. So Oregon, Washington is going to definitely feel like the Pac-12 again, 100%. And I really do respect the Huskies. I mean, Damon Williams is like Kyler Murray. They got David Boston, the old school wide receiver. His son is wide receiver on the Huskies. Jonah Coleman is one of the best running backs in the land. Like, they got some pretty good defense as well. And the fans in Seattle are very, very rowdy. And again, if I could go to one game, obviously I'm not rich to go to Penn State on the road, but if I could go to one game in Oregon or Washington, I would go to that Husky game, even though it would be, a harsh environment with a lot of Husky fans that would be a little unruly, but, that would be the game that I would want to go to if I could go to. But I'll try to go to Autzen for at least a game, but, I usually go once a year. But again, doing this particular dream, I've been streaming for 13 years. This is my 9th year on YouTube. Next year will be 14 years and 10 years on YouTube. And last year was the first year that I didn't go to a game in person in probably 15, 20 years. But I did every stream of the Ducks except one, the first game of the year, just like coincidentally this year, because that Montana State-Oregon game overlapped with the Mariners. And the same thing kind of happened last year. So I plan on doing every single game unless I end up going to Eugene for one. So, yeah, but back in 2019, it was not the college football playoff. The playoff happened last year. So again, you can go undefeated, but you have to remember this is not the BCS. This is a different format in the college football playoff that started last year. So, it's completely different of what happened, with that 2019, team with Burrow and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. That team probably had the most swagger out of any team in college football history, and arguably one of the best teams that we've ever seen. Facts. So I'm very familiar with that team and those players that were on it. So, but yeah, there's a good chance. I mean, we have Novosad and we have Keely Smith Jr., a few guys that could get some reps. But being up 41-3, I would assume we're going to have Dante Moore for at least the third quarter. And then when we go to the fourth quarter, then we can start putting some of the backups in. But we may see some backups, in the third quarter get implemented. But, even though you're up, 38, you still want to be able to bring out your starters and, kind of imagine the game is 0-0 or 3-3 and then, work on your play calls and your chemistry and your continuity together. So. Go Ducks. Yeah, and I've been a fan for, like a long time, for like 40 years. So I may look young, but I've been watching sports and wrestling since I was about 3. And again, I usually try to go to at least a game or two. And again, if I'm not there, I'm going to be your number one source for Oregon Duck coverage on YouTube, number one source for Seattle Mariner coverage. And on top of that, I do NFL, college football, NBA, NHL, AEW, WWE, and I even do NASCAR Cup Series, the trucks, and the Xfinity. So this is really the only channel on YouTube that does everything. There's, some people out there that'll do like Us Sport, their favorite team, maybe do a couple different sports like, basketball and football or NFL and college football. But I take a lot of pride in a lot of reading and film study. And again, somebody's got to cover the Ducks in the right way. Same thing with the Mariners. And I'm your guy. Appreciate you, 25. And hopefully Moore isn't hurt. But again, we will see what they decide to do coming out of halftime as they're showing highlights now of Iowa State, Iowa, which was a great matchup this morning. And the best broadcasters, period, on planet Earth are Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt. Again, you may like Jim Nantz and Romo, as far as NFL guys. But if you want to watch great announcing, nobody is better than Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt, period. Those are my favorites in any sport on planet Earth. They make anything fun. And Gus is one of those guys. He's got a great voice, and his passion is authentic. It's not fake where he has to scream and yell, to get views, and I love that about him. Gus is number one, hands down. And Joel is the best guy in color. The chemistry that those guys have on that 9:00 broadcast on Fox is ridiculous. They are so good. Yeah, but again, you got to think Oregon is so good, and there's not a whole lot of loyalty out of coaches and players nowadays. So just because we have a guy that ends up committing and then they decommit and go somewhere else because they want to play right away and they don't want to be third string on the Ducks, that's fine. we can let guys go and they can go as they please, because we're going to get more and more 5-star, 4-star, and 3-star recruits. And again, it's like, do you want to be a bench, guy on the Buckeyes, or do you want to start on the Ducks? You want to be third string on Georgia, or do you want to be first or second string on Oregon? So there's going to be a little, give and take. And yeah, it would be great if we could keep every, high profiled athlete. But right now, Dante Moore and DeCorian Moore, it's pretty special, and again, it feels like kind of, a Bo Nix type of player with Dante Moore, and DeCorian Moore is DeAnthony Thomas. And again, we haven't had that. If we would have had DeCorian Moore on our team last year to match up with Jeremiah Smith on the Buckeyes, maybe we would have beat him, but we didn't have that flashy player that we needed. And it finally feels good that we have a DeAnthony Thomas on the team. You saw what Chip Kelly was able to do with LaMichael James and DeAnthony Thomas. And now we finally are, I'm not saying Noah Whittington is LaMichael, because he's not, but he's pretty fucking good. LaMichael was a true one of my favorite running backs in Oregon Duck history. But DeCorian Moore, 5-star athlete, he had his choice of Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, Penn State. He could have went anywhere. And for him to have the more to more connection, Dante to DeCorian, it's probably the most excited I've been for a quarterback wide receiver combo in a long, long time. Evan Stewart. Yeah. I mean, yeah. But again, Sadiq might be the best tight end in the nation. And then, if Dante Moore gets time, he can make anyone look good, and that's kind of how it goes. The offensive line is doing good. Defense is doing good. And eventually guys that you're not too familiar with might end up being a household name. And honestly, as the season progresses, Dante Moore will be a Heisman candidate, right? He looks like he could be one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the nation. And again, we'll see him play better and better competition as the year goes on. But DeCorian Moore will be like Jeremiah Smith, and he'll get some love like Jeremiah Smith. And maybe those guys, maybe we have 2 Heisman potential finalists. I'm not saying that they're going to win it or they're going to be in the final, but it's nice to have 2 guys that are on that level to compete with guys that are on, the Buckeyes or on, Georgia or LSU or Penn State. We're right there. And even though we lost a lot of talent, Dylan Gabriel, Tez Johnson, year before that, we lost Bucky Irving. We lost quite a few guys the last 2 years. But again, I like this team better than last year's team. I feel that we're a little bit better. The play calling is simplified. And even though we lost Tez, DeCorian is better. And again, running back situation, with everything that we got, we're about 5 deep at running back. And that's a little bit more depth than last year. And the only thing that will really hold Oregon back is Oregon itself and injuries. So I really like our chances this year. $41-3 Oregon. Let's go, baby. All right, I'm going to go get my pup some lunch. She's in here with me. So let me go get her a little bit of lunch, and I'll be right back. She says, Dad, I'm hungry.
Oh my God.
All right, I'm back. Just had to get my pup a little bit of food there. A little bit of a lunch as we're waiting for the action to come back here.
Who is going to be tied in next year's NFL draft? Wonder no more because
Wow, really? That's crazy. Yeah, crazy. But I've been going. I'm 43, even though I may not look 43. A lot of people think I'm in my late 20s, early 30s, or mid 30s, or late 30s. But I've been going to Duck games for more than half of my life, and my favorite era was probably I've been watching, for a long, long time. Chris Miller, Tony Graziani, going through all the different eras, and obviously with all the different coaches that we've had with Rich Brooks and then Mike Bellotti, and then obviously with Chip Kelly, and now where we're sitting after Crystal Ball, and now with the right one with Dan Lanning. But the Joey Harrington era was probably one of my favorite eras at that point, besides the 94 team that ended up going to the Rose Bowl that had the big pick six with Kenny Wheaton against the Huskies and whatnot. Lost to Penn State in that Rose Bowl in 94, but that was the first glimpse of like what Oregon could possibly be. But then in 2001 with Joey Harrington, that's really when we got on the map, when he ended up being a Heisman candidate. And, we haven't really looked back since. And then since that Joey Harrington team in, the late 90s, early 2000s for the last 25 years, it's been really special and magical. And now we just have to, take it into another gear, hope that Dan Lanning is loyal and doesn't go to Georgia if they fire Kirby Smart, which could end up happening at some point before Dan Lanning is retired. But I hope that we win a natty before he goes. But it would be great if he stays at Oregon for many, many years. But again, you just don't really know the loyalty or where they're going to go. They can say, I'm staying forever, and then leave 6 months later. So, but again, having that tie to Georgia and Kirby Smart, you have to think at some point, if Georgia fires Kirby Smart, their number one target will be Dan Lanning. And hopefully he doesn't take the cheese and take the bite. We would love for him to stay in Oregon for quite a long time. So. It's not that teams are trash necessarily. It's that there's 100 Division I, schools. And again, when you have 100 Division I schools, you have a top 25. How many top 25 matchups do you have in a weekend? Maybe 2 or 3, sometimes only 1. So there's going to be a lot of lopsided matchups in college football until you end up getting the good teams playing each other. And then you really can see who is the best in the world in college football. But that's just how it goes. The elite teams are elite, and the other teams obviously clearly are not. They're not on the same level. So. You lose by more than 21 because some teams have, 90 players that are 5-star, blue chip players, 4-star and 3-star. And then for example, Ohio State has 90 premier players, right? Texas has 70. A lot of these teams, might have 10 or less. So you got to think you're going against essentially an NFL team, that's got, guys on both sides of the ball and backups, a full roster, including backups. Everyone's a pro. And then you're going against a team that's essentially like a high school team or like a college team that's got maybe a couple guys that are good, but the rest are not on that level. That's how you end up getting obliterated, when you end up having these scores. So just because college athletes are playing college football, not every college athlete is built the same, as we know. The NFL is a man's game, and there's a reason why, only a small percentage make it to the NFL from college because, again, it's a man's game, and, athletes are not created equal. That's facts. Yeah, but you have to understand, Kirby Smart, if he got let go, Dan Lanning is a top 3 coach in the land right now, right? Kirby Smart is up there, right? Same thing with Ryan Day. So if Kirby Smart left and Dan Lanning went to Georgia, Georgia would be a fucking powerhouse, just like Oregon is right now, and just like Georgia is with Kirby Smart. So it's not like a DeBoer situation at Alabama. Obviously, you're not very familiar with Dan Lanning and how good he is with this program, because obviously Dan Lanning could go anywhere and turn that program around. But if he ends up going to another elite team that's already in the top 5 or top 10, it's not like he can't recruit. He is one of the best recruiters in the land. Obviously with DeBoer, he got the job based on Michael Penix Jr., and he is definitely not Nick Saban. But again, if you had to compare, Nick Saban and Harbaugh, and guys that may not be playing, that role now, Lanning is right there with those guys at the moment. So to act like he's not, you obviously don't know Oregon football. Oregon has been very, very close of making a natty and getting there within the last few years. And if Dan stays, he has just as good of a chance as Ryan Day or Kirby Smart of winning a natty this year. So again, there's a lot of coaches out there, over 100 Division I, but there's no doubt about it. Ryan Day, Kirby Smart, Dan Lanning are three of the best that are coaching right now, period. What's going on with CBS? Let me reload this real quick. All right, see what the connection will be like here. 41-3 Oregon, and we'll be doing Mariners and Braves at 4:15. So we'll see if they end up running the ball to kind of bleed the clock and whatnot. And again, if I have to dip out, with a couple minutes to go to get ready for the next stream, I mean, it's not like the Cowboys are coming back. So, okay, I think we're good now. Yeah, that was the natty that we feel that, when we ended up playing Ohio State, we already knew that there was no chance of winning that one. Then I'm not even talking about last year, a few years even before that. But the Auburn, I actually have the gloves from that game here that are game used. And Cam Newton, obviously that was the game that we should have won, with Darren Thomas and LaMichael James and, DeAnthony. And when you look at that particular squad, if that player didn't roll over, on his back and end up getting that big first down late for them to end up kicking that field goal, I think that was the one that we that was the only, big game that Oregon, I mean, besides us winning Rose Bowls, with like Herbert and whatnot, that was, the one opportunity that we had. The next time around when we ended up making it to the big game, we had zero chance to win. But, that one, we should have won that game, in my opinion. I think we had the better team. And sometimes you got to crawl before you walk. Sometimes you got to feel the pain of losing before you win. I even have the LaMichael James jersey from that Auburn game stitched with the patch. Probably one of my favorite jerseys in Oregon's history. But, definitely a painful natty, back then. But I'm confident with Dan Lanning that we can get the job done, and he can be better than Chip Kelly. So. All right, here we go. And first down and 10, Flores passing complete to Christian Fitzpatrick. Second down and 10 at the Oklahoma State 25, 41-3 Oregon. I don't think the NIL has ruined college football. If anything, it's better, because you have to think it's not just Alabama and Georgia, paying people under the table and them being the two best teams with all the, 5-star recruits, and then everyone else being below them. Ohio State being like the third best team, and like maybe Michigan. Now, I mean, you still have certain teams that are up there, but it's a little bit more even. Obviously you have to have money, and you have to have the boosters, and the NIL is out there, but you're still going to have some of the similar teams that are good, but it's not as clear as day where it's just like Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, and no one has a chance. Other teams actually have a chance to win a natty now, whether that be Penn State or Texas or Oregon, and that's what makes college football better rather than prior to the NIL. So I disagree. Yeah, but you guys don't spend any money. If you guys actually spent money on the squad, I mean, what did you think? You guys thought you were going to be close with Oregon? Oregon is not an average team. We're a powerhouse. We're right there with Ohio State and Penn State. We're one of the top 5 teams in the land. And if you ended up playing Ohio State, Penn State, Georgia, you probably would get smacked like this in the same score. So again, you have to understand who you're playing. You're not playing an unranked Oregon team. You're playing number 6 Oregon, who will be in the top 5 for the rest of the year. who potentially might only lose to Penn State on the road and the Huskies on the road at the end of the year. We're going 10-2, 11-1, or 12-0. You know, you're not playing a scrub team, you know. Yeah, and you guys don't. And you guys should spend money. You know, you have to have money to be good in college football. You have to have good recruiting, but also not just the money. We have better coaching. You know, Dan Lanning is a better coach than Gundy. He might get fired after this year. You know, you guys had Barry Sanders, Thurman Thomas, Des Bryant. You know, you've had some players in the past, but that was a long time ago. You know, you should be lucky that you won game 1. You're 1-0. You know, see what happens the rest of the year. You know, it's a multiple things. You have to have a good head coach. You have to have money. You have to have recruiting. Yeah, we got Uncle Phil, you know, but again, we also have the best uniform combination, helmets, you know, cleats. And again, when you're sponsored by Nike and you get all the fresh gear, that's what a lot of these high school kids want to wear. You know, they want to look fresh. You know, they want to be able to have the different jersey every game. And again, they can always go to Ohio State. They can always go to Georgia, you know, but obviously we have something special, you know, building here in Oregon. You know, it's not our fault that we have all these things, you know, and again, we don't have a natty. So it's like, you know, again, we have all these things, but we haven't, you know, hit the promised land just yet. We're getting close, you know, but we're not the Buckeyes. We're not Georgia, you know, but we're trying to be. So. Yeah, but comparing those two things is apples to oranges. The reason that the NFL is great is because you have parity. You know, everyone is pretty close to each other. Every, you know, game is usually decided by 3, 4, 6, 7, 8 points. And you have a blowout once in a while, but a majority of the games in the NFL are close because the competition level is close. When you have 100 Division I teams and you really only have 20, 25 good teams out of 100 plus, I mean, what do you expect? You know, you're going to have teams that get fucking mashed. Yeah, Oregon is solid. We're better than last year's team. And I feel like having a right-handed quarterback with Dante Moore is better than Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel, you know, obviously made the NFL and is with Shedeur Sanders with the Cleveland Browns, but he kind of reminds me of like a Tim Tebow that can't run. You know, and again, you know, the throwing motion was, not the greatest. You know, obviously Michael Penix Jr. as a lefty on the Huskies was a lot smoother. And if we would have had a quarterback like that, maybe we would have been able to win last year. But obviously the defense shit the bed. Chip Kelly called a great game for the Buckeyes with Ryan Day, and we lost. But, you know, going undefeated or losing one game, you're at a disadvantage if you have a month off. So it's kind of better to lose a game or two continuously to play every week like the Buckeyes did. And that might be the formula with this new college football format unless they change it, you know, and they actually reward the teams that go undefeated or lose a game. But, you know, I like Dante Moore better than Gabriel. He kind of reminds me of a Bo Nix type. And Jacorian Moore is like DeAnthony Thomas. So we finally have some explosive players, and Dante Moore is still out there on the field. He should play the third quarter, and then eventually in the fourth, you might see like Nova Sad or Akili Smith Jr. Harris run up the middle and a 3-yard gain to the Oregon 40. But Oregon is very good. We're right there with, you know, Ohio State, Penn State, LSU, Georgia. We're right there. We should be a top 5 team all year. Might slip out of the top 5 if we lose to Penn State, but, you know, you never know. Anything could happen. Dante Moore pass complete to Malik Benson for 6 yards. 3rd down and 1 at the Oregon 46. Let's go Ducks.
Going to the Detroit area, we've been going up to Detroit. I followed it coming out and I go,
You know, but I started following this team when we would win like a game a year. You know, I've been watching this team since the 80s. You know, believe it or not. So, you know, back in the day, Ducks were only winning like a game or two a year. And then to, you know, go from winning a game or two a year and then having a magical moment when I was 12, you know, and the 94 Rose Bowl against Penn State, even though we lost, getting that pick 6 with Kenny Wheaton started it off. And then obviously Joey Harrington in 2001. Since then, we've been very dominant. And again, you know, we're still thirsty for a natty. First down and 10, Moore passing complete to Jay Harris. Second down and 10 at the Oregon 49. But it's kind of nice that, our recruiting is on the same kind of level, as the Buckeyes and, Texas and a few others. But you have to realize Ohio State has 90, 9-0, 5-star, 4-star, 3-star players. I think they have the most in college football, right? And even Texas has 70 plus. Oregon is not on that number level. So, even though we know we're a very solid team, Ohio State by far has, the most NFL caliber players on the roster than any team in college football. And that's why they had that, obviously dominant run last year and a very dominant run so far early this year. Harris run for 1 yard to the 50-yard line. Third down and 9, 41-3 Oregon. But Ohio State's always been good. It's always been Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, but now Ohio State, with NIL being legal and, getting the recruits, they're the real deal. You already knew at some point or another the Buckeyes were going to get there. Joey Harrington, Marcus Mariota, Justin Herbert, Bo Nix. We got a nice tradition of quarterbacks, even Dylan Gabriel last year. Dante Moore, pass complete to Kenyon Sadiq, the best tight end in the land, 14 yards, first down, Oregon. Move the chains. And again, we're going to have one of the top 5 quarterbacks, one of the top 3, top 5 tight ends. And, Moore could be one of the best quarterbacks, Sadiq, one of the best tight ends, and DeCorian Moore, one of the best wide receivers. And on top of that, having one of the best running backs in Noah Whittington. And we got 4 guys behind him. So it's a pretty special combination of players that we have this year. Potentially 3 guys that could be number 1 in their position, or at least competing for top 5 spots. As bouncing out to the outside, Lamar, nice game there. First down, Ducks, move the chains. Harris run for 4 yards to the Oklahoma State 15. We're about to score. Second down and 6. 4 yards to get that first down. And we're 15 yards away of getting to 48. Let's go. No, we don't need Novosad or Achilles Smith Jr. in, because you got to make sure you're playing reps, based on the score being close, and you imagining that it's not 41-3. So that way you understand what it takes to be able to call plays, in the third quarter. You want to make sure that you're getting your continuity and your reps, not just having 2 quarters of good ball and then just hoping that that will carry over to next week. You want to make sure that the starters are getting at least 3 quarters in, and then in the fourth quarter, then you can start implementing some of the backups and whatnot. We want to have Dante Moore get as much experience as possible. It's not like he was the quarterback last year. So again, we want him to get as much time as possible, even if we're up 38 points. Handoff up the middle and just short of the marker. Harris run for 4 yards. Third down and 2 at the Oklahoma State 11. Yeah, well, Big Ten is king now, right? And obviously they were smart to bring the Huskies and the Ducks over. Obviously they brought USC as well. And, you got a UCLA, obviously more of a basketball school, but, Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, that's a pretty dominant trio, and there also will be other teams that will be in the top 25 mix, throughout the year, whether it be Illinois or Michigan, and when they're good with recruiting and whatnot. So, SEC is no longer king. They'll still have a few good teams with like Georgia and LSU, but Bama is terrible. DeBoer needs to get fired, but it'll cost $70 million to get rid of him, and they're not going to do that. So, but at some point they will get rid of him. But again, what are the chances that you're going to find another Nick Saban? Not likely. So.
As an official sponsor of the NFL, Jersey Mike's wants you, Eli Manning.
Yeah, I mean, we're a team, and we're very disciplined. And again, Dan Lanning is one of the best motivators, recruiters, and coaches in the land. And, I feel very confident with him. I mean, I love Chip Kelly. I'm a big Chip Kelly guy, but Lanning has the skill set to be better than Chip Kelly was at Oregon, and that's really saying a whole lot. Big facts.
Superstitions, Matt?
It's a good thing Discover makes it easy to be a good tech fan.
And we gained 10 more subs. 20 subs gained so far. 36 subs to go to 21,700. But we do Mariners every day. We'll be doing Ducks every week. We do Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night games. And then once the NFL season's over, a little NASCAR, a little Seattle Kraken, a little Blazers for the NBA, and some good matchups in hockey and in the NBA. We do WWE PLEs once a month. And again, sometimes UFC and boxing once a year if it ends up being worthwhile. Like I heard what they're going to do, what Mayweather and Tyson. That's obviously a money grab and whatnot. But will I be watching? Yeah, just like everybody else. Gained another sub. 21 subs gained. 35 to go to hit 21,700. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on the dono train. And we've gained 20 subs. Let's see if we can get to 30. And we broke 10,000 views on the stream. We're at 10,200. Let's see if we can get to 15,000 or 20,000 views before the game is over. I would assume the starters will go out in the third after the third quarter is over. More pass complete to Gary Bryant Jr. Touchdown Ducks. And we got a penalty there on Oklahoma State, and that's declined. There we go. Nice job, Ducks. Let's go, baby. I mean, we're nowhere near the 5-star, 4-star, 3-star level as Ohio State that's got 90. Texas has got 70 plus. If I had to take a guess of the total amount of 5-star, 4-star, 3-star, I've looked it up in the past, and typically they don't give you the 3-star numbers. They usually will give you the 4 and the 5 most of the time, but I'm pretty sure it's like at 30 or less total. So, I mean, just think about that for a second. Oregon is as good as it is with like 30 5-star, 4-star, 3-star guys, and then you got Ohio State that's got fucking 90. No wonder Ohio State is the king of the castle, Extra point is up and good by Atticus Sappington. 48-3 Oregon.
Possessions for the Ducks today. 7 touchdowns. Here comes number 7. Gary Bryant. And they are shot. Here about
I mean, if we're talking about the commits as well, then you're going to get higher numbers. But if we're talking about the players that are playing, not the guys that are sitting on the bench and the guys that have committed to the team. Like Dante Moore was 5-star. Evan Stewart was 5-star. Josh Connerly Jr. was 5-star. Obviously, DeCorian Moore was 5-star. And again, 4-star, 3-star guys are still valuable. But, obviously the ones that you try to get are the 5-stars. So. What's good, brother? Miss you too, dude. I'm gonna need another one of those chains that glows in the dark with all those different colors. I'm gonna have to try to be able to get one of those at some point from you.
Boyfriend of the year. Did we say a lot? We meant a lot. Gemini, is my house plant leaning away because it hates me?
Nothing personal. It's leaning away from more sunlight.
Come here. Gemini,
Yeah, I mean, if you lose on the road, Penn State and Washington could beat us, and honestly, it's better if we end up losing a couple games based off the college football format. Just because we're up 48-3 right now against Oklahoma State, I mean, they're not on the same level as us. So obviously, when we play Penn State on the road, that could be a game that we could lose because they're a very solid team. Even the Huskies on the road in Seattle, last game of the regular season, that could be a game that we could lose. And honestly, if we go 10-2, play every week in the college football playoff, make the Natty and win it. I would rather have that than go 12-0 and then lose in the first round with a month off like we did last year. It doesn't benefit the teams going 12-0 or 11-1 unless they change the rules in the college football, playoff format. So, it's hard to go undefeated in college football, and obviously we know Ohio State is good. Penn State is good. LSU and Georgia are good. Oregon is good, but, it's not easy to go undefeated, my guy.
Here on CBS. It's live tomorrow at 8 Eastern,
48-3 Oregon. Go Ducks, baby. And I like this team better than last year's team, like I mentioned before. I feel like, Dylan Gabriel really didn't fit in with our typical offense. Normally, we don't have a lefty at quarterback. Now, if he was a better runner like Tim Tebow, then that could have been the difference that maybe we needed. And obviously, he made the NFL. He's on the Browns with Shedeur Sanders, but I definitely like Dante Moore better than Dylan Gabriel. It definitely reminds me more of like a Bo Nix type. And I think the offense runs better with a righty rather than a lefty. We don't have to flip the plays around to the opposite side since we have a right-handed quarterback this year. So, and we actually have a Jeremiah Smith finally on the team with DeCorian Moore, and that's going to make a huge difference with this squad. Rodney Fields Jr. run for 3 yards. 2nd down and 7 on the Oklahoma State 18, 48-3 Ducks.
They have a chance to redeem themselves before they
on CBS against the Trojans of USC.
have they ever played.
I don't know right now. I'm going to go about one more shot. There's only the second time these two teams have played. The last time was a bowl game. So, with all that in mind, that's Saturday.
Flores sacked. It's 12 noon. You know what time it is? Time for a duck sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. There we go. First sack of the year in this game, number 2 for the Oregon Ducks. Nice job. Tetum. And again, it's going to be tough to be able to get those sack lunches. They're not going to happen often, but when they do, we love it. And again, if you end up running a play action fake, you better get rid of the ball quick. Otherwise, 4-4 will be all on you. Great job by 4-4 there. 3rd down and 13 on the Oklahoma State 12, 48-3 Oregon. Appreciate you. Flores pass complete to Rigby for 7 yards. 4th down and 6 on the Oklahoma State 19, and they will punt. Great defense by Oregon. We're flying around out there, and there's some position groups that are kind of young, and there's a lot of new names to memorize and a lot of new names to be able to, get familiar with. But I definitely, as great as we were last year with Dylan Gabriel and Tez Johnson, this team is better. My boy, Collegiate Art Designs, always making the fresh gear for Oregon Duck fans. All right, good field position there after Gary Bryant Jr. gets the fair catch at the Oregon 46, and you would assume in a matter of a couple minutes that we're going to score again, and it'll end up being 55-3 here in a moment. And again, for Oregon fans, these are, I don't want to say fun games. I mean, it's better to be on the winning end than the losing end, but I actually look forward to the games where we actually have a chance to lose. So Penn State and Washington are going to be the 2 games that I'm going to have circled on the schedule, because when you have a chance to lose, that's when you get the funnest games. Obviously, if you're an Oklahoma State fan or just a outsider looking in, a team that's down by 45, I mean, this game was already essentially over in the first quarter. But again, that's the difference between obviously college football and the NFL. There's a pretty big disparity and whatnot. But, we'll see where it goes. Not every game is this going to be this easy for the Oregon Ducks, but we'll take the big wins while we can get them early in the season. Yeah, Moore is a Ryan Williams, Jeremiah Smith, and even better than Ryan Williams, in my opinion. I think he's on the Jeremiah Smith level. And Moore will be in the NFL. Same thing with Dante Moore, the Moore-to-Moore connection. We got a few NFL players on this team, but it's the best wide receiver quarterback combo we've had, since we had DeAnthony Thomas. So. But I love seeing the Ducks play well. I love seeing backups get a chance to play. And I like seeing the new players, make a name for themselves. And, Will Stein simplified the playbook, which made it a little bit more complicated last year. And if you notice, Oregon last year at the beginning of the year had a few games where it looked like they were going to lose, like Wisconsin and a few others, where, they didn't look good. And this Oregon team is night and day difference from last year's team. We're not struggling one bit. The play calling is simplified. We have more weapons. Defense looks just as good as last year, if not better. And again, I'm really looking forward to seeing a deep run here by the Oregon Ducks in 2025. Yeah, 100%. And I will be doing the Ravens and Bills for Sunday Night Football tomorrow. Looking forward to that. I'll be watching my Bucks going against the Falcons in the AM at 10 a.m. and then the Mariners play tomorrow at 9 a.m. I'll be watching those privately, and then we will end up doing the Bills and Ravens tomorrow hybrid. Can't wait for that. Those two teams are salivating now since the Chiefs ended up losing to the Chargers, and they got the Eagles next week. So this could be the first year that we don't see the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And if you're a Raven or a Bill fan, that's got to make you excited, or even a Bronco fan and a few others. And we got Luke Moga coming out over Novosad and Achilles Smith Jr. And pass to the sideline, incomplete. Holding. 10-yard penalty. So now they got all the backups in for the most part now. Some starters are still in there, though. Davison run for 5 yards for the Ducks. Nice job, Jordan. 2nd down and 5 at the Oklahoma State 39.
Jordan Davison in at tailback.
And I assume that we're going to get a lot of running from the Ducks the rest of the way. There'll be a few passes here and there, but a lot of running the football, bleeding the clock out. And again, I wouldn't expect us to get, that much more, high 50s, mid to low 60s. We're not going to hit 70, 80, 90, obviously taking out Dante Moore and trying to get some reps for our backups. False start by Oregon. Come on, baby. 2nd down and 10 for the Ducks. And again, when you have backups in, that's going to end up happening, not only with the quarterback, but offensive line backups too. Alex Harkey with the false start. Come on, baby.
So 2nd down and 10.
2nd down and 10 at the Oklahoma State 44. Moga pass complete to Cooper Perry, 2-yard gain, 3rd down and 8. And again, obviously the offense is going to be, like this squad versus Oklahoma State should be pretty fair. With like all our backups going against their main starters, it should be kind of back and forth. We're not going to be exploding for touchdowns every, few seconds like we were with Dante Moore in the game. Yeah, there's no purpose of running up the score and trying to get to 80. We want to make sure that others are getting a chance to play this year. 3rd down and 8. Luke Moga in the game for Dante Moore. And Hughes with a run up the middle for a 3-yard gain, 4th down and 5. And that should be a punt here for Oregon.
rushing at 15 touchdowns.
I mean, at this point, if we're not going to score a lot offensively, I want to see some fumbles. I want to see some picks, and hopefully we get a fumble for a touchdown or a pick for a touchdown if we're not going to be scoring too many more passing touchdowns or rushing touchdowns.
57. He hit from 62 in a scrimmage in the spring, but this isn't a scrimmage. Some people are going to look at the score and think it is.
And timeout is called before Atticus Sappington is going for the long field goal.
No, Dave said I called timeout. No, I called timeout.
Timeout, Oregon. Trying to hit us with a delay of game. We're trying to kick the field goal. There we go. They got it. They got it corrected.
And gathers his team around. News and notes around college football.
Looking forward to that Michigan-Oklahoma game. Obviously, not very many good ranked opponent matchups, obviously, here in week number 2, but, you know, it is what it is. Iowa State, Iowa was pretty good this morning with Gus and Joel Klatt on the call. And again, like I said, don't expect a whole lot more points offensively from the Ducks. Maybe, you know, field goals, maybe defensively if we're lucky to get a fumble for a touchdown or a pick six for a touchdown. But it's going to be one of those kind of, you know, run the ball, bleed the clock, don't run the score up, and let the backups go against their starters and, you know, get everyone some playing time here today since we're up 45. Field goal kick by Sappington is up and wide right and misses it by a mile. No good. And they're bringing it out of the end zone. And they probably would have been better off just punting right there, but, you know, it is what it is. Horrible missed field goal by Atticus Sappington, but now it's first down and 10 at the 19. 1 yard gain by Hicks. Second down and 9 for the Cowboys. And hopefully for the Cowboys' sake, if you're a fan of them, you know, hopefully they can get to, I don't know, 10 to 17 points before this game is over. But, you know, it's been pretty rough. And you can definitely see the difference of talent, you know, based on what Oregon has and what Oklahoma State has up to this point. And people said, well, you played Montana State last week. They're not a good team. They're not for real. And we're looking even better today against a better team. Because if Oklahoma State played Montana State, you would assume Oklahoma State would win. So, you know, we can do it on every single level. And really what it's going to come down to, we're going to need like an Ohio State-Texas type of matchup, and we're going to get it this year with Oregon versus Penn State on the road. And then we'll really find out, you know, who the better team is. And if we end up dropping that game, I wouldn't really be that shocked. Harsh environment, whiteout, it's going to be very difficult. But we have the talent to win, but do we have the discipline to win? And then also the Huskies at Seattle at the end of the year will be a tough one as well. Well, we got our backups in, so that's not going to happen. You might not even hit 60 points before this game is up. So we got all our second, third, fourth stringers in for the most part. There we go. Nice catch. Pass complete to Christian Fitzpatrick for 11 yards. First down, Cowboys. Move the chains. Yeah, but again, you know, not every, you know, year is going to be great, bro. Like, you know, when I started watching the Ducks, they were only winning a game a year. Could you imagine watching your team only win a game? 1 or 2 a year? You know, again, we've come a long ways. You know, it's not like we've been to Alabama or Georgia over the years or Ohio State. You know, we just started to kind of get into this mode, you know, starting in, you know, the Joey Harrington era, you know, and obviously in 94, we made a Rose Bowl, but we got our ass kicked, you know, by Penn State, but at least we made it with Kenny Wheaton's pick six against the Huskies. But we really didn't start breaking out until like the late 90s, early 2000s. And now the last 25 years have been fantastic, but it wasn't always like that for Oregon. Flores, pass incomplete to Jackson. Hicks run for a yard to the Oklahoma State 16. And now it's 4th down and 13. And Oklahoma State's going to have to punt.
It's your arms.
And there's the punt. Gary Bryant Jr. there, fair caught at the Oregon 45. And again, once you end up playing teams that are more on your level throughout the year, you guys are going to have some fun wins and fun games. It's just, anybody that plays a team that's in the top 5, top 6, top 10, and you're not ranked, yeah, this can happen. It happened to me, when I was younger, when we would end up playing, top tier teams. And trust me, it's not fun, but again, hopefully, more money will be pulled into the program. But let's be honest, Oklahoma State and Oregon, or Oklahoma State and Oklahoma, haven't really been the same, in quite some time. So, I mean, even Oklahoma, hasn't been the same since Bob Stoops. I mean, they might be ranked in the top 25 now, but we'll see how they look against Michigan later today. So, yeah, but you already have a win this year, right? So you have a chance to get more wins than you did the year before. So sometimes it's baby steps, and again, being a fan of teams is not always easy. Like, here in the Pacific Northwest, it's not pretty. Blazers, Kraken, Seahawks, Ducks might be the most successful team out of all the teams in the Pacific Northwest, but there's a lot of pain, typically for teams that are in Oregon and Washington. So it's not like it's peaches and cream. Really, the only team that's elite in Oregon and Washington is the Oregon Ducks. That's it, And obviously the Mariners might be able to make the playoffs this year, but they've been playing shitty lately. We don't. Seahawks look like they're on a kind of a rebuilding year. Kraken still are a long ways to go. Blazers, long ways to go. It's not like the Beavers and the Cougs are that good. So, it's like we got one good team out of like 10 teams, unless you want to count like the soccer and the Sounders, who are great, but most of the time it's like it takes a while for our teams to get good. But once we build a team for 5 to 10 years, then usually they're championship contenders. We may not, win the Natty or the championship, but we can get there, like the Huskies did with Michael Penix Jr. But, it's better to be a real fan than to be a bandwagon fan. And then once you guys get good, it'll feel a lot better for you rather than just being a fan that wins 10 games a year and you take it for granted, Yeah, I'm going to be going to the Mariner game, not now. I mean, the game, obviously, the Mariners don't play for another hour. But, yeah, I will be doing the Mariner stream. And, this game will probably end before the Mariner game starts. And I'll be good to go. I got the lineups prepped. I made the thumbnail already. So we'll be good to go. We're going to transition from this game to the Mariner and Brave game in an hour. We'll be there. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. We've gained 20 subs last time I checked. We'll see where we're at now. And we still got a few more donos to hit the dono goal. Oh, nice catch. There we go. Go, go, go. And almost a touchdown for Oregon again. Beautiful. Gained 5 more subs. 33 to go. 2 more subs from where we were at. 22 subs gained so far, 33 to go to 21,700. Ducks are prowling. Handoff up the middle. And Jordan Davison run for a yard. Touchdown, Oregon. There we go. Nice job, Ducks.
Looks like they're bringing in the heavy unit.
They've got Grace as a fullback. And Davison the tail.
They're big all over. They got
Extra point from Atticus Sappington is good. 55-3 Ducks. Let's go. Go Ducks. All Ducks all day.
Now they scramble around as they go for the extra point.
All right, 117 left in the third quarter. And again, I assume a lot of running the football, for Oregon, and maybe it'll be a 62-3 final. I'm hoping that Oklahoma State can get in the end zone against our second, third, fourth, fifth string guys, so they can at least get to 10. I don't want to see them at 3 or just 6. I would love for their fans to at least feel a touchdown in this game. I mean, I'm not heartless. I mean, we've been in this position before where we've gotten our ass kicked like this. So, and at this point, you just want to try to get to 10, 13, 17, but Oregon is just a little too deep this year. He already is. I mean, obviously Ryan Williams showed some flash when they actually had a capable head coach, but Jeremiah Smith is the equivalent to DeCorian Moore. He's a 5-star athlete. He's got great hands. They're both going to be in the NFL sooner than later. And DeCorian Moore is the Jeremiah Smith equivalent to Ohio State. And that was what we were missing last year. If we would have had him last year, maybe we don't lose that game yet last year to the Buckeyes. So, but we didn't have that DeAnthony Thomas type of player, and now we do. And it also helps that we have arguably the best tight end in the nation in Sadiq, one of the top 5 quarterbacks in Dante Moore. And when it's all said and done, we might end up having a top 3 quarterback, a top 3 tight end, and a top 3 wide receiver. And if you have top three, and also a very solid, top 10 running back in Noah Whittington with 4 guys behind him, we're going to be very hard to beat, with 4 positions with top 10 guys, 3 of them with top 3 potentially, quarterback, wide receiver, and tight end. So it's a pretty special team this year. Yeah, Arch looked terrible in week 1, but Texas's defense is one of the top 3 in the nation. But his footwork and his mechanics, throwing motion was terrible. He looked good today, but who is he playing? Garbage team. So anyone can throw for 3, 4, 500 yards and have 3, 4, 5, 6 touchdowns when you play a shitty team, But again, Arch is not going to win the Heisman, and he's not going to be the first pick in the draft. Honestly, I think Dante Moore, in my opinion, is better. I would rather have Dante Moore on Oregon than Arch Manning. I get it. He's related to Eli and Peyton, but intercepted. Go, baby, go. The 10, the 5, touchdown, Oregon, pick 6, baby. And we were talking about 5-10 minutes ago, thinking about a fumble for a touchdown or a pick 6. Jerry Mixon, he makes my prediction come true. And just like that, 61-3, Oregon. Let's go. Beautiful pick 6.
About the 25-yard return with the pick 6.
Extra point is up and good, 62-3. And they said, you played Montana State. You guys are overrated. You guys shouldn't even be 6th in the nation. Well, after beating an opponent that's better than Montana State, and we're up 59 with a minute 9 left in the third quarter, that we could potentially score 80 or 90 if we wanted to. Let's be real. This is a top 5 team in college football, period. Is Georgia, LSU, Penn State, Ohio State better? We don't know yet. But at least at this point, we are not frauds. We are the real deal Holyfield. Go Ducks. I mean, I didn't even expect us to put up 62 today. Go Ducks. Novosad should transfer. He's not good enough to be the lead quarterback on this team anyways. And then at some point, Achilles Smith Jr., might be able to have a talent level to do it. But Novosad, he's not good enough to lead this team. He never was. So anyone that ends up being a backup, could end up transferring and whatnot. We need NFL quarterbacks on Oregon, going from Herbert to Nix to Gabriel, and obviously now to Dante Moore. And, we can always, try to grab guys from Oregon in high school, but we can always get transfers as well. So Bryce Miller is pitching today. Yeah, but you also have to remember, Hybrid, Chip Kelly was calling the plays, for offensive coordinator for the Buckeyes. Who knows the Ducks better than Chip Kelly? No one. So if Chip Kelly wasn't there, we would have won. He wouldn't have, Ryan Day wouldn't have been able to come up with that game plan, So again, that was definitely a, shot in the mouth that we ended up taking, but we didn't have any explosive players at running back and wide receiver. They did, and they had Chip Kelly. That was the difference. So. Three-yard run there by Brock. Second down and 7 for the Cowboys. 62-3 Ducks. Intercepted again. Pick 6 again. Touchdown, Oregon. Unbelievable. Same play, same spot. Unbelievable. Peyton Woodyard. And again, we're very good at cluing. And again, if you're going to read the quarterback's eyes like the Oregon Ducks do, back-to-back pick 6s, baby. Let's go. I mean, I talked about getting a pick 6 or a fumble for a touchdown, but I didn't think we would get back-to-back pick 6s. Let's go. You can't make that throw on Oregon. 69-3, and we're not even trying to blow them out. I mean, we didn't do this last year. Pick six. You kidding me? And again, I really do think LSU, Georgia, Penn State, Ohio State, I have the utmost respect for all those programs. And extra point is up and good. 69-3 Oregon. But remember, last year, we didn't have the explosive players. We struggled early in the season, barely winning games. Not like this. This is a different team. This feels like more like a Bo Nix squad, a Justin Herbert squad, not a Dylan Gabriel squad. Let's go. $69-3. Unbelievable. Back-to-back pick 6s. Yeah. And again, I've been a Duck fan for a long, long time. I don't remember ever us getting back-to-back pick 6s, honestly. And I've been a fan since I was like 3. I've been watching this team for like 40 years. And I literally cannot think of any moment that we've gone back-to-back pick 6s before. Wild. We're pretty good, Sean. We're pretty good. Much better than last year. No shaky games against Wisconsin. No shaky games at the first part of the season like we had last year. It definitely shows you the depth that we have, on both sides of the ball. This is a better team than last year, and we were amazing last year. But again, this year could be the year that we possibly make a deeper run, and maybe if we're lucky enough, maybe we can make a natty. No guarantees, but. So far so good in the first 2 weeks of the season. Nice tackle there by the Ducks. Gundy has already been on the hot seat for the last 5 years. So, but again, if you like to have a consistent, person to look up to, I mean, he's it. But they don't get enough money, recruiting-wise for him to be able to be as successful as he could be.
Here at Oregon, guys, the Oregon staff went up and took the ball back.
And that's the end of the third quarter. 69-3 with a short gain right up the middle by the Cowboys. Second down and 6 at the Oklahoma 17. Yeah. And Mariners play in 45 minutes. This game should be over before then. And then it looks like I'll have maybe 5 minutes to eat lunch, eat a piece of pizza or something, and, drink some water. And then we'll get right into Mariners and the Braves. So long day here for me. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. And we're at 4 on the Dono train, 96 to go. Hopefully we'll get some people to show some love on the Dono train in the future. And we've gained almost 30 subs. So that's good there. And as far as the views, we've hit the mark with that as well. Let's see where we're at on the views on the stream. Gained a few more subs. 32 to go. And hopefully we'll get more people to support on the Dono train in the Mariner stream. But where are we at? We are at 11,300 views and counting. So definitely doing a great job here. 75-3, which doesn't even seem like a real score. That seems like a Madden NCAA college football score on rookie or easy mode. But again, if anyone ever doubted Oregon last week against Montana State, what can you say now? Oklahoma State is 1-0. They're better than Montana State, and they're Division I, and we're up by 72 with a quarter to go. I mean, if we really wanted to, we could score 100 on this team, but we won't. There's no need to, to run the score up. But again, I have never seen back-to-back pick sixes before, so I guess you're going to see things in 2025 that you've never seen before. Crazy, man. Go Ducks.
Choices like no other, and you'll win the long game. Country mile. Toyota is KBB's best resale value brand 5 years in a row. Find yours at Toyota.com. Toyota. Let's go places. Yeah, Coach. Any changes coming this week?
All right, so we'll do a quick recap of the game. Noah Whittington run for 59 yards to start the game for a tutty, 7-0 Ducks. Dante Moore to DeCorian Moore for 65 yards, 13-0 Ducks. Hill Jr. run for 19 yards and a TD, 20-0 Ducks. Field goal by Ward by the Cowboys from Oklahoma State, 20-3. And then we had Dante Moore to Malik Benson, 42 yards, 27-3. Dante Moore, 25-yard run, 34-3. Lamar with a 5-yard run, 41-3. Dante Moore to Gary Bryant Jr., 48-3. Davison for a run for a yard for a tutty, 55-3. And then we just had back-to-back pick sixes when we were up 55-3. And we had Flores pass intercepted by Mixon. That was a pick six. And then obviously Flores intercepted by Woodyard, 28 yards, 69-3. So it should be 69-3, not 75-3. That's ESPN for you, though. Maybe they just decided to give us an extra touchdown. There we go. They just corrected it. I was about to say, how did we get to 75? But, maybe they're anticipating another Duck score. So, yeah, Gundy should have kept his mouth shut. But again, everyone will talk shit to Oregon, and we'll figure a way to compete. So 69-3 instead of 75-3. Oregon, the workers that are working at ESPN obviously are getting a little too excited. 20 points in the first quarter, 21 in the second quarter, 28 in the third quarter, and now we're going into the fourth. 69-3. And Brock with a short run there for 2 yards. 3rd down and 4 at the Oklahoma State 19.
15 years. It's very impressive. Every game since 2010, Austin Stadium has been playing shout in the third and fourth quarter. References the famous toga party scene from Animal House, which was filmed here at Oregon.
And Brock with another run for 2 yards. 4th down and 2, and time for another Oklahoma State Cowboy punt. I mean, they're afraid of throwing the ball, obviously, because they threw 2 pick sixes to the same spot. And honestly, I've been a fan of Oregon for almost 40 years. I don't think I've ever seen them get back-to-back pick sixes ever. And I've watched every single game, pretty much, for the longest of time. So, I guess, being a Duck fan has some perks. At some point, you're going to see something that you've never seen before. And, for future coaches that want to talk shit about Oregon, like Gundy, well, 69-3, I think we'll, put you in your place, and we have. Yeah, just like Dion talking shit, and we shut him up real quick, too. I was actually at that game. Oregon versus Colorado with Dion. Feels really special. Better than last year. And again, Dylan Gabriel was like Tim Tebow, but minus the running. His throwing motion was not the greatest, even though he did make the NFL. Bo Nix was better. And obviously not having Bucky Irving last year definitely hurt us. And we didn't have those electric players at running back and wide receiver like we do this year. Noah Whittington obviously was on the team last year, explosive, but we got 4 guys behind him. But really the big difference is Dante Moore and DeCorian Moore. Having a guy like DeAnthony Thomas and a guy like Bo Nix on the squad is really making a big difference this year. And the defense looks like it's a little bit better than last year as well. Yeah, but even if we lose to Penn State and Washington on the road and we go 10-2, that might be better for us instead of going 12-0, having a month off, playing the Buckeyes and then losing in the playoff. I want to make sure that we're playing every week, because if you end up going 11-1 and 12-0 and you have a month off, what happened last year? Every team that had a great ranking, right, had a month off and they lost. Not one team that had a bye won a game. So what does that tell you? Unless they change the format, it's actually okay and probably preferred to lose a game or two. So that way you can continue playing. If you go undefeated, you're fucked because you're going to have a month off. The players get rusty. You play a team that's hot like Ohio State, game over, season over. So, if we end up losing to Penn State and Washington, that actually might be a better thing. It's better to lose in the regular season and go all the way rather than go undefeated and lose in the college football playoff. So we'll see how it ends up, turning out. But this team could go 10-2, 11-1, or 12-0. But one thing is for sure, we're a top 5 team, and we will be the rest of the year.
Another tough throw. This one broken up into double coverage. To look at IHG Hotels and Resorts game recap. Dante Moore, sensational day.
Dante Moore is sensational. Heisman candidate. And I feel like DeCorian Moore, if he keeps up his pace, like DeAnthony, he'll be recognized as a Heisman hopeful as well. It's not often that you got 3 guys that are going to be one of the best in their positions. Dante Moore at quarterback, Sadiq at tight end, and then DeCorian Moore, 5-star recruit at wide receiver, who's just like Jeremiah Smith. So that's exactly what we were lacking last year. We got the Jeremiah Smith on the Ducks this year, and look how much better we are. Highest scoring game in college football history was Georgia Tech, 222-0 over Cumberland in October 7th, 1916. How the hell do you get to 222 points? But that's social media. So 222? But how many teams were actually playing back then? That's wild. 222-0. Hughes, stuff for no gain. And Luke Moga run for 22 yards. First down, Oregon. But like Novosad, obviously you have Achilles Smith Jr. waiting in the wings, but Novosad should transfer. I would want to keep Achilles Smith Jr. whenever he's ready down the road. And, who wouldn't want to be a quarterback for the Ducks as long as we end up getting an NFL player, to transfer from another school. We'll take what we can get. But Luke is not good enough to be the quarterback next year. So, again, it's like, okay, you're the backup now. But, even Achilles Smith Jr. probably is not going to be good enough to be our quarterback next year. So, but a nice run by Luke right there. Big first down to the Oklahoma State 46. Amy says Oregon is 115 in 1910. Nice job by Amy. Appreciate you. 69-3, Oregon. Offense, defense, special teams, coaching, recruiting, play calling, we're checking off all the boxes, baby, and it feels good. And I feel a little sorry for, Oklahoma State fans. I mean, it's one thing to lose, but to lose like this is hard to come back from. But at least on the bright side, they won last week. They're 1-0. They're not 0-1. So at least they know what victory tastes like. Hughes run for 5 yards, 2nd down and 5 to the Cowboy 41.
Thanks for having us over. That was a lot. That was awesome. Whole life, whole family, everybody. Your mom and I are best buddies now. They really are. I'm surprised you two didn't go out dancing. Well, she's 88 years old and she did an aerobic class in the morning while I was sleeping. We'll start offense, number 83, 5-yard penalty, 2nd down.
That's a good question. I mean, he's 20. So, I mean, you would assume, based off his eligibility and, what's going on, we assume he's going to be a Heisman, candidate. And, we'll see where it goes. But I would say for sure, based on how he plays this year, he could be a 1st round, 2nd round pick in the draft. So I would say, yeah, he'll probably leave Oregon after this year, even if he has years eligible that he could stay. Realistically, I would assume that he'll probably go to the NFL next year as a 1st or 2nd round pick. Now, will he be a good NFL quarterback? We don't know. Obviously we've had Herbert and Bo Nix that look pretty damn good in the NFL now, and we don't really know yet about Gabriel. Gabriel seems more like of a backup quarterback to me. It doesn't seem like he's on the same level as Herbert or Nix, but Dante Moore could be like Bo Nix, possibly on the right team, as long as you don't go to the Browns. And Moga passing complete to Jeremiah McClellan. All the backups are in and have been in for a while. 4th down and 5 on the Cowboy 41. I think the people at ESPN got a little ahead of themselves. When I first started the game, the ESPN employees didn't even have the scoreboard up until the Oregon first score. So sometimes when I do Mariner games or NFL games, they end up putting up the wrong information, the wrong score, or they end up taking a while to update for whatever reason. And I know it's a tough job and there's a lot of things that are going on, but it kind of feels like you can tell when they're going to the bathroom or when they take a break or whatnot, But I think they just got a little ahead of themselves. Or someone was playing a prank in the studio. A little pooch punt. Great punt down at the 5. Beautiful special teams. Great job there by Oregon. Yeah, and I like games like the Penn State-Washington game this year that are going to be close, where we actually have a chance to lose, rather than games like this. Do I enjoy blowouts? Yeah, but I actually look forward to more stressful situations where the game is on the line, like when we played the Huskies and lost twice with Michael Penix Jr. If we would have taken the field goals, instead of going for 4th down, maybe taking what the defense gave you, maybe we would have won one of those games or maybe both. But that'll be something that Dan had to learn from. You can't just call plays like you're Chip Kelly all the time. Sometimes you're going to have to take the field goal, even though you can score the touchdown. And it cost us. And, they meant to the Natty. They lost to Michigan, but I was very proud of the Huskies and Michael Penix Jr. They had a great squad, and I'm hoping the Huskies end up getting good again. To me, that's a sleeper team in college football this year. And hopefully one day it'll be Buckeyes, Penn State, Oregon, and Washington as the 4 best teams in the Big Ten, with obviously Michigan and a few others close behind. So, but yeah, Penn State is going to be a lot of fun, and we will have a big chance to lose, especially if they do a whiteout. Which I imagine they will. I mean, they're gonna be rocking the Mo Bamba, right? Mo Bamba, in the background, people jumping up and down, everyone wearing white, more than likely, spinning those towels. It's going to be the harshest environment that we've played in a long time. So, but again, we played the Buckeyes on the road with Kayvon Thibodeau, won, right? Obviously, when Thibodeau was out, and we still beat them in that Thibodeau era. Played them last year at home, won at the very end of the matchup when Will Howard couldn't get that snap off. But then what happened? We had a great record, had a month off with the playoff, and the Buckeyes kicked our ass with Chip Kelly calling plays. So, At the end of the day, Ohio State is the king of the castle, and they're on a generational run in that college football playoff and their regular season going into this year. They are the new Georgia, Alabama, and there's no doubt about that. But I like it like that. I want to make sure that we're playing against the best. To be the best, you have to beat the best. Ric Flair said it, and he meant it. All right, we got 9:57 left here in the fourth, and I'm doing the Mariner and Braves game at 4:15. So we have 30 minutes to go, and hopefully this game will end up ending so I can take at least a 5-minute break, and then we'll be doing Mariners and Braves for 3 hours or 2 hours and 30 minutes. So.
And then right tackle Alex Hartman in the end zone blocking. So the way you're supposed to do it, if it all fits together, speed and blocking was a pretty good weapon.
Yeah, but again, for all the haters, that thought that the Ducks weren't legit because we played Montana State. I mean, what does this say? Oklahoma State is a Division I team, and we beat them even worse than Montana State. Montana State scored more points, and they're not even Division I. So, Oregon is really showing. And again, once we keep going down the Big Ten schedule and these out-of-conference opponents, until we get to that Penn State game, we are the real deal. Yeah, I assume that people are just going to run the ball. I mean, if we were the Ducks, just run the ball, But again, with Oklahoma State, they don't really want to throw because they've already thrown 2 pick sixes. So it's pretty much Oklahoma State run the ball, bleed the clock, punt. Oregon run the ball, and then, bleed the clock out, game over. So. And Fields with a no gain. 3rd down and 5 at the Oklahoma State 10. You know what? It actually would have been a good matchup. Montana State and Oklahoma State would have been, but you have to understand Montana State was one of the best teams in their conference. They were at the top. So, maybe that's why they did so good, against Division I teams and whatnot, because they were one of the best teams even in a lower division. And Flores with a pass complete to Capel, 6 yards, 1st down. Cowboys. There you go. I mean, I know it's over and it's ugly, but I mean, at this point, anything is a positive for the Cowboys as long as you're getting 1st downs and not throwing pick sixes. So, and honestly, I would, for Oregon's sake, keeping them at 3 is ideal. But for Oklahoma State fans, they're really praying they can get to at least 10. But we'll see if that happens against our backups or not. Fields run for 8 yards. 2nd down and 2 at the Oklahoma State 24. Yeah, for me, I don't want Ohio State and Penn State to lose games. I want them to win as many as possible. So that way, if Oregon plays teams in the regular season, Penn State or Ohio State 12-0 undefeated, and we beat them, it's going to mean even more. I mean, 11-1 Ohio State team is still going to be awesome as well if that happens. But, I mean, the Buckeyes are ridiculous. I mean, they got 90-plus 5-star, 4-star, 3-star recruits. And I believe that's number 1 in college football. Texas has got like 70-plus. And, again, pretty night and day difference between those two teams. Defense, both two are the top 3. But offensively, Buckeyes are much better than Texas, in my opinion. And a 1-yard run by Fields. 3rd down and 1. Yeah, and you've had Gundy for quite some time. Maybe it is time for a change. But who will take the job, though? I mean, are you just going to go after some like random at like Northwestern and then, have them get promoted? Or is there someone with, close ties to Oklahoma State that could bring them back to being relevant again? But again, they need to spend money. They don't spend money. So if you don't spend money in NIL and boosters, don't support, then you can't expect to compete with the big boys. You have to have people support the school. And, they don't have the support. And Flores with the keeper and a nice hit out of bounds. 4-yard gain. 4th down and 5 now on the Cowboy 21. No, Huskies are not beating the Buckeyes. Not happening. But the Huskies could beat Oregon maybe at home if we end up playing bad. And there's a punt. I mean, you have to understand that Ohio State right now is, I mean, the one thing that they have that might be considered a weakness is a new quarterback, but was saying he actually did pretty good. He played better than Arch Manning last week. And good return here by Oregon. DeCorian Moore returns for 15 yards. So explosive. And all I've ever wanted is another DeAnthony Thomas, Jeremiah Smith player, and we finally got one to commit to Oregon. It's beautiful. All right, we're 25 minutes away from the Mariners and Braves. We got 5:48 left here with the Ducks. I assume we're going to run the ball a few times, and hopefully I'll have at least a few minutes to rest. Shout out to all the people that sub, donated, commented, shared. We gained 30-plus subs. Now we're only 30 away from hitting our next goal. 30 subs to go to 21,700. So shout out to all the new subs. Shout out to all the people that have donated. And shout out to all the viewers that came in to watch the first Oregon Ducks stream of the season. And the only reason I didn't do Oregon and Montana State is because it overlapped with the Mariners. I would have only been able to do 2.5 quarters, 3 quarters, and then that didn't really make any sense. So I figured I would just watch the Oregon game with my pup and then do the Mariners stream, and that's what we did last week. But we will be doing the Oregon stream every week moving forward. So, and the same thing happened last year as well. So let's see where we're at on views on the stream. We gained another sub. Shout out to all the new subs. And if you're new to the channel, I do everything. We do Mariner baseball. We do Duck football. I do NFL, Monday night, Sunday night, Thursday night. I do NHL with the Kraken, Blazers, as well as good matchups. We do AEW, WWE. We do NASCAR. So there really isn't anything that I don't do on the channel. So, and let's see what we got. We're at 12,000 and counting. Let's go. Shout out to all the 12,000 different viewers that have watched or stopped by. All right, baby. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're at home. Ohio State is a powerhouse. But, if, Jeremiah Smith and saying the quarterback got hurt and, something like that, then the Huskies would have a chance. But if they don't have any major injuries, I don't think that game would be that close. But I do think the Huskies are a fun team to watch, and they're my sleeper team in college football this year. But, we're talking about the Buckeyes. Even Oregon, Penn State, Georgia, and LSU might not be able to beat that team. And those teams are all top 5, top 6. So Clemson shitting the bed against Troy. What's new? Biggest loss in Oklahoma State history. Wow. Let's go, Ducks. Juan, you know it. We'll find out later in the year, Jason, if that's true. You're a top 25 team, but you got to worry about Oklahoma here today. And you don't have the same type of athletes on Michigan this year compared to a couple years past when you had Harbaugh at head coach. So there's still some pretty good players on Michigan, but again, player for player, Ohio State has, a little bit better roster, but you never know. That matchup is always intriguing, enticing, and it's always must-see TV. I watch it every year. It would be a huge upset if the Wolverines were to beat the Buckeyes this year. That's for sure. Now, if Harbaugh was still there with their recruiting, you would have a little bit better of a chance. But we'll see. And Brock Thomas, pass incomplete to Malik Benson. 3rd down and 11. Run the damn ball, Oregon. Yeah, I don't know. I've been a Duck fan for 40 years, but Ohio State is on another level, But again, we won't know until we play them in the college football playoff if we actually are better than them this year. They don't have Chip Kelly anymore, and they lost their defensive coordinator to Penn State, but they brought in Vrabel. So, Again, Ohio State is really, really good. And it could be possible that Penn State and Oregon could beat the Buckeyes, but we won't know until we match up. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward, Jason, to watching Michigan and OU, and I'll be rooting for you guys to win, representing the Big Ten. So it's going to be tough, though, and you know it. You know it's not going to be easy, but it's not like it's a Bob Stoops Oklahoma team. So you have to feel confident, but also feel like, okay, it could go a little sideways. But it could be a hell of a lot worse. I mean, imagine if Bob Stoops was still coaching Oklahoma. Then they would be, right there with Ohio State and Oregon and Georgia and LSU and all the elite teams. So at least they're not as good as, the Stoops era.
Offsides against the Cowboys. Quarterback would have loved to have that big whistle dead, don't you know? No kidding.
Yeah, but again, we beat them at home. But what happened in the college football playoff? We got fucking obliterated by Chip Kelly. But thankfully, he's not calling plays for Ohio State anymore. He's on the Raiders. So we're not going to have to worry about that anymore. But, I mean, we have a better quarterback than Ohio State this year. We have a Jeremiah Smith clone in Decorian Moore. We have the best tight end in the country in Sadiq. We got 5 running backs, led by Noah Whittington. We got a really good defense. It feels like this team is better than last year. So, maybe we could be the number 1 team in the land, but, we're going to have to, scratch, claw, and fight to get there. But I'm content being a top 5 team all year. And then we'll find out how good each team is in the college football playoff. And honestly, it's probably better if we lose to Penn State and Washington, go 10-2, and then play every week in the college football playoff like the Buckeyes did. Because if we go undefeated or 11-1 and we have a month off, we're probably going to get our ass kicked, just like every other team did that had a bye last year, unless they change the college football playoff format. It doesn't help a team going undefeated. It actually hurts you, having a month off. So, we've never, won a natty, and I want Dan Lanning to win a natty. And, Dan Lanning is a top 3 coach in college football, right there with Kirby Smart and Ryan Day. And, I like our chances. We're getting closer and closer and closer. And at some point, we're going to make a natty. We may not win the first time that we go, but it feels like if Dan stays for 10 years, we should be able to go to at least 2 natties and win at least one of them. And that's what I'm hoping for. And if we're really lucky, we go to the natty twice and win both times. But, we don't need to be greedy. I need to see a Duck natty in my lifetime, and I need to see a Mariner pennant. If I can get the Ducks and the Mariners to win a championship before I die, I can die a happy man. I mean, Blazers already have a title in 76. My Bucks have won 2, going 2 for 2. Obviously with the Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, John Lynch, Rondé Barber, Mike Allstott era, and then obviously in the Brady era a couple years ago. But I want to see a Duck championship, and I want to see a Mariner pennant. But, and both teams look pretty good, even though the Mariners have been on a slide in the last 20 games. But hopefully we get back on track with Victor Robles coming back here today. It's better to have a right-handed quarterback than a lefty unless we have a Michael Penix Jr. type. And, Dante Moore is more of like a Bo Nix, and that's exactly what we need. All right, 69-3. And the Mariner game starts at 4:15, so I am going to have to cut the stream short in 5 to 10 minutes, but we'll continue to see if they'll bleed this clock out, and maybe the game will be over. I'm just going to need a few minutes to prep. I already made the thumbnail, and I got the starting lineups all set to go, so it won't take me long. And Thomas run for a loss of 4 yards, 4th down and 10 at the Oregon 34. Yeah, 3-14 in the last 17 road games. Terrible. The worst stretch that we've had all year, and maybe in the last couple years, and the pitchers that have pitched well as of late haven't been able to get the dub like Logan Gilbert would have if fucking Gabe Spire didn't blow the fucking house down and ruin the game for us, But again, you can't win scoring 1 run. And when the Mariners don't homer, we don't win. And I think we're going to play much better. Leo Rivas and Robles in the lineup, and it's the best lineup we've had all year. I mean, it's a sexy lineup. Randy Arosarena, Cal Raleigh, Julio Rodriguez, Josh Naylor, Eugenio Suarez, Jorge Polanco, JP Crawford, Victor Robles, and Leo Rivas. My God, it's an all-star team, but we need to play like it. And then we got Bryce Miller on the mound. And the Ducks punt. And now fair caught at the Oklahoma State 29 by Gavin Freeman. Yeah, but playing at home and playing on the road are completely different things in college football, as you know, Knockout. So, I mean, anybody that's in the top 6 could lose at home or on the road against another opponent in the top 6, whether that's Ohio State, Georgia, LSU, Penn State, Oregon. I don't think there's necessarily 100% win ratio at home or on the road for any of those teams. Those teams all seem very, very good this year. And there's even a few teams in the top 10, in the top 15 that could surprise and move themselves up into the rankings as the year goes on. 8-yard gain there by Hicks. 2nd down and 2 at the Cowboy 37.
State fan thought that they would win this game. They were just hoping it wouldn't look like this.
Hicks yards. 8-yard gain. Now Hicks again for 5 yards. 1st down, Cowboys. 1st down and 10 at the Oklahoma State 43. 69-3, Oregon. I mean, Oregon fans did not expect this. I think we thought, somewhere in the 40s or 50s for Oregon, and then maybe Oklahoma State somewhere between 10 and 17 points. I think that's what we were all kind of thinking. No one, I don't think, really thought 69-3, But again, our defense got 2 pick sixes back-to-back, and I don't think I've ever seen that happen in Oregon Duck history ever. So that has kind of made the score go where it was. Otherwise, it would be 55-3. And maybe it would have, finaled at 55-3, so. Hicks with a 6-yard gain to the 44. 1st down and 10, Oregon. No. 1st down and 10, Cowboys. 2:26 left. 69-3. Go Ducks. Much better than, last year's team where we struggled early in the season. No struggling this year. All right, 2-minute timeout. And I'm going to have to end the stream shortly so that way I can at least get started for the Mariner game that starts in 13 minutes. It's going to take me 5 or 10 minutes to prep. So, I'll try to, make it all the way to the very end of the game if I can. So. Yeah, our offense is too good to be at 37. I mean, top 3 quarterback, top 3 tight end, top 3 wide receiver. And essentially you could end up having number one in 3 positions. So, I mean, not to say that it will happen, but, Dante Moore looks like a top 5 quarterback, could be a Heisman winner. Could be. You don't know. DeCorian Moore looks like a top 5 wide receiver with Jeremiah Smith. Could end up being one of the top 2 guys in the nation with Jeremiah Smith. It could happen. And Sadiq could be the best tight end in the nation, and it kind of looks like it. So, I mean, it's the first time that we've had 3 positions that, high at this point in a minute. So, I mean, obviously when we had LaMichael James and DeAnthony Thomas, we were special with Chip Kelly, but this team is, right there with the Bo Nix squad and much better than last year's squad. That's tough. Yeah, only will happen if he ends up running for an RPO, setup here and there. And it also depends on, if he plays 4 quarters or not. If he plays 4 quarters, he hits that instantly, but if he only plays, 3 quarters, then, and obviously it's a blowout situation, then, sometimes that might not happen. So. All right, I'm trying to get to the end of this Duck matchup against the Oklahoma State Cowboys because I'm doing Mariners and Braves with no rest and that starts in 11 minutes. So they need to hurry up and fucking down this ball, and that way we can end. So. Yeah, but even the smartest Oregon fan, did not predict 69-3. I guarantee no one saw this coming, But again, us being able to get to 69 happened because of back-to-back pick sixes. I've never seen that before. So maybe the final score should have been 55-3. And even 55-3, no one would have predicted that either. So, Hicks with a gain of 6, second down and 4. Now with 1:52 left in the fourth. I got to change my gear from Duck gear to Mariner gear as well. Hicks with a big run. There you go. 14 yards. First down, Cowboys. There you go. I don't want Oregon to give up a cheap touchdown here late, but man, 69-3 is a little miserable for Cowboy fans. And I'm not talking Dallas Cowboy fans. They actually played pretty good against the Eagles, even though they dropped that game. Now, if CD Lamb didn't have so many drops, maybe it would have been different. All right, I got 10 minutes to go before Mariners and Braves. I got to get close to I got 5 more minutes. I think I can manage by changing my gear and then setting up the stream for the next stream to get first pitch around on time here. We got a minute left. Now, it really just depends if Oklahoma State is going to keep throwing or if they're going to run the fucking ball. Handoff. There we go. Nice gain there. 7-yard gain by Hicks. Now we got 24 seconds left. And one more snap, and then we should have game over here. Hicks, 7-yard run to the Oregon 22. First down, Cowboys. This is one of the best wins Oregon has had in years. And it's not against Montana State, for the haters saying that we couldn't play against good competition this year. Well, I think we put that to bed. And again, we'll play better teams as the season goes on, but at least Division I teams, it's not, oh, you didn't play a Division I team, your guys are overrated. Well, we don't look overrated now, winning 69-3 against Oklahoma State.
Let's see if that's going to do it.
And that is it. Final score, 69-3 Oregon. And now I got to hurry real quickly to get the Mariner Brave stream, which starts in 8 minutes. So thank you to the 30-plus subs that we gained. Shout out to the people that donated and showed love. Hopefully we'll get a few more than Reflect and Sarah. And we ended up hitting some great numbers here on the stream. We ended up gaining quite a few extra subs here at the last minute. Now we only need 26 to go to hit 21,700. And we ended up hitting number-wise on this stream, 12,500 people plus and counting. So shout out to all you guys. Go Ducks. And again, final score, Oregon 69, Oklahoma State 3. What a big, big win. And again, I will be live in 8 minutes for the Mariners and the Braves. Go Ducks, baby. Shout out to all of the individuals in the room, all the new subs, and I look forward to kicking it with you guys next week for another matchup with the Oregon Ducks. Love you guys, and I appreciate you guys very much. And I got one question for you. Who talk sports like us? Your boy Orion, Northwest Sports Fanatics, and I'm out. Gang.